Oh, it's that retro smell that's in the air, the time of year that comes around all but once, and this year it's at a completely different circuit. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to round 7 of the Smith & Sons Supercars Championship for ASR in 2021, and round 7 out of 10 for the championship proper. And as you can tell, it's Retro Round. It's the annual event that we said comes around once a year, and this time it's not at Sandown. For the very first time in 4 years, the series takes its Retro Round to Calder Park in a theme we're entitling What is Old is New Again. Everyone for many, many years has known that this circuit has been in a big state of disrepair, and if Tony Quinn was to invest in Calder Park and take it off the Jane family, this is ASR's interpretation of what it would look like. My name is Steve DeVries, and alongside me for the second time this year is Benjamin Roddy Rhodes.
Thanks for having me along again. I am so keen to be here, not only at Calder Park, but for the Retro Round again. I was a little concerned that we would lose the Retro Round with Sandown moving to the Enduro format for this year, but we shifted to Calder, and for the very first time in our Supercars history, the entire grid is running retro liveries.
That is a huge thing that you've just mentioned as well. Every single car from every single driver that submitted a livery is indeed a retro livery. There are actually a couple of drivers not here yet. There is a couple of developing stories that we'll get to in a few moments' time. But the very first time, 25 cars and 25 retro liveries. And we've got a little bit of background history on all of them. You can see them circulating around there. But there are so many different types of retro livery. Everything from Supercars to IMSA to NASCAR. And even the movie industry. There's a few of them out there, and we'll take you through all the bits and bobs about what's what and who's got what and who's driving which car as the night progresses. So many really, really good liveries, and a job well done from everybody that's produced not only the main game liveries this year, but the retro liveries as well. There's truly a huge number of talented livery designers in the ASR community, and we can't wait to take you through everything that we see tonight. But you also raised a very good point there as well. Sandown is absent from the Supercars calendar this year. It's been a mainstay, which is why Calder Park picks up the banner of Retro Round for this year. Supercars Enduro Cup is going to feature Sandown this year, and in the interest of sort of doing each track only once this year with the Supercars machinery, that's why we decided Calder Park was probably an appropriate track to host Retro Round.
Yeah, and it is a historic track for Supercars. It's probably one of the older ones that is I think one of the older ones, at least, that's on our current calendar within ASR. And no, it's a really good job. I harped on about this last week as well on the Super 2 broadcast on the work Lewis has done in converting this to a track that, yeah, exactly. It's how we imagine it would look like, and we're not the only one who would like to see it. So others in the articles about Tony Quinn getting knocked back from the QR and Lakeside proposal said, "Hey Tony, you want to come and pick up Calder?" And no, it's really good to see Calder looking like a modern racetrack. For the first time, it's looked like a modern racetrack in probably 20 or 30 years. If it even looked modern, I think the last time it was anything near world class would have been when the WTCC raced here, I think 1984. But no, I've been for a lap around this place. The only place I've been for a lap in a supercar was back at TAFE with one of the Kelly Racing Ultimas, and it's a great track, and I've had some great success here. The team, PBF team as well, I've had some great fun here, and it should be some good racing tonight.
Yeah, to think that they still actually do some of the supercar hot laps around Calder Park. I think the last one I remember seeing was Daniel Ricciardo a couple of years ago with the Australian Grand Prix when they had the Castrol special event that I think was it Rick Kelly or Todd Kelly, I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Rick, took him for a run around Calder Park in the Nissan Altima at the time. And the last time the supercars proper raced here was in the early 2000s. So it was a long, long time ago. We're sort of getting close to about 17 or 18 years ago, the last time that supercars turned their wheels in anger at this particular circuit, which gives us an opportunity to have a look at the circuit as we hone in for the first time this year on the Victorian capital of Melbourne. There it is. We should point out that the BP service stations just outside the gates here at Calder Park are a hotspot in Melbourne at the moment, so they have had a COVID test to get into the track tonight, all the drivers, but just off to the northwest on the Calder Highway or Calder Freeway out to Bendigo. You go past this place so often, and it's devoid of much activity nowadays, Rhodey, but tonight it comes alive yet again.
Yeah. So currently in real life, some test days. I think the drag strip down the main straight here, which is why the main strip of Calder is so wide, is the majority of the use we get around here. And then I think the only big use it's got recently was Lemons Racing, which managed to get to use the full layout, which is both the full length of the road circuit and the oval. And I know we've got some people in the work potentially trying to bring that to AMS, but for the moment, no. It's good to see Supercars back around here. They haven't done this since I think 1990 something in real life. Well, my memory's a little foggy, but it should be some good racing.
Yeah, definitely should be some good racing. Worth pointing out, there's actually 4 layouts that Calder Park had in the day. There's the current layout, which we're using, which is the national layout. The shortened club layout, which about halfway down the front straight does a U-turn and then goes back and cuts in sort of between the 2 chicanes in the back straight. There's, of course, the Thunderdome, the Calder Park Thunderdome layout, which has played host to many, many different forms of motorsport over the years. The old Ozcar series, even the HQ Holdens went around the Thunderdome in the day, going clockwise, of course, not like the American system, going anti-clockwise and making the left-hand turns all the time. We actually turned right here. And then there's the combined layout, which you alluded to, which basically goes down the front straight about 3/4 of the way along the front straight, just past the pit exit there. It was a very abrupt braking manoeuvre and a 180-degree turn through the little infield section out onto the Thunderdome, and then you sort of got back around to the same part of the circuit, and then another hard brake, turn 180 degrees left, and then rejoin the front straightaway for the run down to what is commonly known as Turn 1. The qualifying lap record and the race lap record, there's a very, very high chance that those will go tonight. We are not too far away from those times at all on the left-hand side of your screen there. So there's been plenty of practice laps turned throughout the course of the week, and the best laps we were seeing were in the 55.9s, so 55.960 to Luke Rosella. So, Rhodey, we're not that far away from that 55.925 qualifying lap record set last year.
Knowing these guys, even the guys that tested on the public practice server, they'll probably still have half a tenth to a tenth in it. So yeah, I would not be surprised to see both records break tonight. And I think part of that from last year is, and it's been the same for all the tracks, that the cars have just been easy to set up. The cars have been much more approachable this year around than they were previous years. It was historically only like CRE was the guys to go to, at least for the Commodore, to get it fast last year. I know that PBF had to tap on their door at the later end of the season as we were struggling. But now this year, a lot of teams are getting really well gelled with these cars. And I think the other thing we can kind of credit to is, I imagine with all the work Lewis has put in, the track's probably had a bit of a resurface as well, because in real life it's still running, I think, the same surface aside from the drag strip that's been running since the 80s. So, cheeky little resurface to smooth out the track surface would probably give you a couple more tenths as well.
Yeah, there's been a few track texture updates. There's been plenty of the different signboards going out there as well. All the grandstands, you can see the amount of work that's gone into this track when we cut over and have a look in just a few moments. Even just looking at the front straight there, you can see from the last 2 years that we've run Supercars here, 2019 and 2020. If you're familiar with these broadcasts, it is a phenomenally different look and feel to what it was just 12 months ago. And I mean, we don't stress how often, or this often enough, the amount of effort that goes into doing the tracks for ASR. This year, that baton has been picked up predominantly by Lewis Wedding, and he does need to be patted on the back a huge amount for all the work that he actually does in conjunction with Nathan Higginson as well. There's plenty of work that between the two of them that they have done over the course of the last 6 to 12 months, getting all sorts of things completed and ready for use in ASR. So we do thank them enough. I mean, we don't. The guys don't get paid for what they do. That's the thing that everybody needs to be aware of. Everything that gets done for ASR the admin team pretty much do it on their own time and out of their own pockets, and especially things like the Mustang this year, which cost a pretty penny, is just something that they wanted to do, and they've done a fine job of that, along with all the track stuff being done as well. So big hats off to those two guys for everything that they've done this year, and the sad part is there's still a lot to go. There's still plenty of racing. We're only halfway through the year, Rhodey, and there's still a lot of tracks ahead that these guys are working feverishly on.
Well, we're only halfway through the year, but it's something that only twigged to me recently is that because of the structure of the calendar, where I think it, as we've mentioned, we're at round 7, and it's only a 10-round season. So we've only got 3 more rounds last night of Supercars racing left, but it's because of that big block in the middle at the back half of the year for the Enduro Cup that it will actually fill out nicely. But I think this is, I was looking at this when we were forming the calendar at the start of the season. This is the shortest calendar we've had for a Supercars just because of the format we've taken this year, which does mean that the racing is more consistent. It is also easier for some of the drivers to keep track of. It's easier for us on the broadcast, the admin end, but I won't fluff into that too much because we're just starting qualifying now.
Yeah, qualifying getting underway now. The big stream of cars heading out onto the circuit. One thing we didn't pick up on the track map information screen was that track position and position on the circuit will be at a premium for qualifying. You can see them here already, a number of drivers just behind Kurt Stenberg there on screen, already trying to sort themselves out and find ways through the pack to get a bunch of clear air, to get yourself the right spot. You don't want to be caught up in all the traffic going on and the shenanigans going on down the back. There's already a couple of cars on the front straight that have got that ability straight away. So Pete Savage is one of them, and then the man directly ahead of him is Scott Stancliffe. So we'll pick them up on the first few laps that are being flown at the moment, and here they are into turn number 1 and 2. A couple of different approaches. I have seen a few drivers with a few different gear ratio options being tested across the 2-hour practice session so far this evening, and a few drivers going down the front straight banging on the rev limiter at about 267 k's an hour before they hit the brakes, and a few drivers taking the slightly longer gear ratio coming up to the first turn as well. So they're getting near sort of just over 270. So there's a few spots if you run into that default gear ratio that you bang the limiter, especially going into the first chicane, going into the final corner as well. So some drivers prefer that rather than costing them some time. Some drivers prefer to go up a gear and back a gear. Sometimes I don't know what sort of methodology that entails, but that's just their personal preference. Opening laps now being fired off here. So Stancliffe was not too bad with a 56.8. Opening salvo, 55.866. Kurt Stenberg immediately, he's gone off the track there, immediately under the qualifying lap record. That is fast, and that's not expected. I wasn't expecting that lap record to be abolished so quickly.
So Kurt's obviously been putting in, he's had some work on his own running his ASC championship over the past 4 weeks. They've always had 2 rounds at Townsville mirroring the real life calendar. I didn't think he'd have the time to put aside the practice time, and he doesn't normally put a lot of practice into this. So we know Kurt's a quick steerer. For him to be that far ahead at the first salvo and also be that far under the record already, I'm interested to see who, if any, can challenge her. I think that's an opening salvo we normally see. Normally people will set a base sector and then will improve on that to their final time, but Kurt seems to just gone straight from 0 to 100.
He absolutely has, and the livery he's running this weekend is it's a tribute to his iRacing livery that he first ran a long time ago, back when the VF Commodore was first released into iRacing in 2014. So not long after that, Kurt got himself a car looking similar to this. Had a little bit of different sponsors on the side. I think it was Dayco back then. The TTR logos now adorn the side of this car, but that's where he's paying his homage to this year, and it's fitting that we give the first honour of where the retro livery comes from to the defending champion from last year. At what was a bit of a bogey track for him, because last year a 4th place finish and an 11th place finish and a spin off the final corner in that second race as well. There wasn't one of only 2 occasions last year, 2 rounds last year, where he didn't finish on the podium, the other being Surfers Paradise after all the penalties were all said and done. And there was another round in there as well. I think it was the first race at Sandown which was last year's Retro Round, that he didn't finish on the podium, but he did in race 2. So it was a very rare occasion to miss out on the podium at this circuit last year. It doesn't happen all that often. This year's sort of playing out much the same sort of way for him at the moment, as his time has now been surpassed by Will Devonish, who's gone to a 55.792. So the track record swapping twice in the last few minutes, as Will has a moment off at turn 7.
He was up as well, so he was set to improve. But it does make sense that the first swing back at that record and that pole position is the man who held the record last year and held the record up until this point. Talking about retro livery and where retro livery come from, Will's is a bit more obvious, and this isn't actually a livery that Will's painted himself, but Will, a big fan of Lounsey, as well as Cam Rutledge, and we'll see Cam's car later. Will is running the gold and black and yellow and green Autobahn Lowndes livery. This was the Thanks CL car, thanks to Craig Lowndes, that was run at Craig's very last round of, I think, the 2018 Newcastle round.
Yeah, correct.
So there is 2 of these liveries out here. There is the gold and black one, which Will's running, and there is also a silver and black one out there as well that Cam is running, which was his regular season livery.
Yeah, there is the livery in question, so good angle at that one there, you're right. So the 2018 Newcastle 500 was the one and only appearance for that livery on Will Devonish's car for Craig Lowndes, and then the last ever livery that he ran in full-time Supercars competition. And then the other one, which we go and see if we can find for Cam Rutledge, who's currently a bit further down the order than ideally he'd like to be. Here he comes to the line now. There he goes, just under the boom. And then out of shot is the full-time livery that Lowndes ran in that year for Autobahn Lowndes Racing. And the same livery that Will Devonish and Pete Savage drove last year in the Bathurst 500. And it was the last full-time Bathurst 1000 drive for Craig Lowndes and Stephen Richards that took this car to the top step of the podium in the 2018 Bathurst 1000 as well. So they are clearly fans of Craig Lowndes. I think Cam's a Holden man through and through, so I don't think he'd have anything less. And there has been a new change at the top there. You can see from the graphic there, Luke Rosella currently sitting in the pit garage, gone to a 55.746. So this is 3 changes of lead at the top, and it is 3 changes of a qualifying track record as well. So this is, we were serious. I think when we looked at it tonight and thought the lap records are going to go, and they're gone very, very quickly. And this session's going very quickly as well. We're almost 3/4 of the way through it.
Yeah, and it's been a short track. They're going to get a lot of laps into the session. Or
Whoa! Big incident on the front straight. Luke Rosell and a bunch of others were coming out of the pit gauges. One of the Kiwi Nissans had a major hemorrhage. I'm not sure what happened there. We'll go and have a look at this on the Smith & Sons replay, because this is something that was completely just out of the corner of our eyes here. Okay, so Rosella and a couple others just waiting to move here. Moved out to track, and is someone not paying attention? Oh, indecisive. Steve Warwick just, wrong moment. At the wrong time. He just seen the back of shot there. We couldn't quite pick up which car it was. I think that might have been the NZ Snipes machine, just from memory, just looking there. So one thing we do have to learn is the new liveries for this round, so we know who everybody is. But, that's a major calamity, and I dare say the stewards will probably be looking at that one. It might actually go down to be a bit of a racing incident, that one. Just, I think there was a little bit of indecisiveness on a couple of drivers, so we'll let that one go and see what happens after the session is over. But that's a very nasty incident very early on in the piece.
Drivers have been warned about pit exits at this track. It is one of those old school pit exits that drops you directly onto the racing line, being the left-hand side of the track that you run down to turn 1. And yeah, it seemed like Luke was the head of that queue. He got out and got himself pretty far to the right-hand side. Warwick wasn't sure when to come out and basically just pulled out as the lane ended. And yes, not flying down, obviously, on it, either starting a lap or coming off a lap, going for another. He just had to kind of split the difference, and they both zigged when one of them should have zagged, and Snipes went across the track into where Luke Rosella was and had to keep going. And if it was 50 metres later, he would have caught the Armco parallel and would have run down it, but he caught right at the end of the Armco, where it's protected by these big tyre barriers, so that you don't have an accident like the one we just saw, and an accident like the one we just saw. So I think he has got out in time to get another lap in. Hopefully the same for Steve Warwick, and hopefully it didn't affect Luke Rosella too much either. It would have been a bit of a fright, but that would have been about it, hopefully.
Well, it hasn't affected Luke Rosella too badly. He's going for another lap here. It was a very slow lap then, a 1:05.7, but he is caught in a bit of traffic at the minute, so that car is on its way to turn 1 at the moment. Here it is, just caught up in between the head of the Hans Brunswick machine and behind Turmo at the moment, so that's where he currently sits. Championship leader at the moment, Luke Rosella. We'll have a look at the point standings on the other side of qualifying so you can see where everybody is. He's led the championship for 2 straight rounds now. And another car that's been really well painted, the number 9. It's a special couple of drivers with some special numbers this round as well. Luke Rosella is one of them. Normally number 5 or 55 is on his cars. This round it's number 9. I know there's a few memes going on there, but exactly, number 9. Like the Beatles Revolution 9. And Rosella even lowers the benchmark again, so he gets to a 55.735 as the clock goes 0, and that should be pole position for car 9 quite comfortably at the end of the day as he goes straight on at turn 1, with Devonish in the garage and Kurt Stenberg in the garage, and Pete Savage to 4th as the checkered flag flies. And just looking to see if there's anybody else out there on some improvements. There is not. Tim Redmond in position 5. Colin Warwick has gone to P6.
Might have been his way up the time, so he just come out of the last sector. He's an improvement in 1.5 tenths through that second sector. He might jump up. It's only in 14. It's a bit low for what we see for Lewis Wedding usually, and he does jump up to 8. So that's very tight mid pack actually. Only 0.143 improvement on his PB, but that was enough to jump him up 6 spots. So.
Yeah. Good late improvement there from Wedding as well. I was just having a quick roll through the order. So that means Colin Warwick in 6th, Turmo 7th, Wedding 8th. That pushes Nolan down to 9th and NZ Snipes down to 10th. And Steve Burko, who was inside the top 10 there, is in P11. And you can see the rest of them on the side of your screen there. Brunswick from Ross, Scott Stancliffe, Ujit Mishra, Cheese, Peter Thrower, Cam Rutledge, Steve Warwick and Lachlan Burke. Those off the screen, Nathan Higginson, Freakish Ben Hall. And the sole wildcard this round, which I should point out, is Brian Walsh. So the Super 2 fraternity, I guess, were put on a bit of notice last week that there was a few drivers with a bit of silly driving. Brian Walsh was the only one that basically came up and was not involved in anything, and he was given the honours of being the sole wildcard. At the moment, a couple of drivers that are missing, Lime Mitch, I haven't seen today, and Brenton Foley's actually got a power outage at the moment, so that's the issue that's holding him back from not participating tonight. Is there's no power in his area, and if I know Brenton Foley, he's going to be sitting in his car with the engine on, with the phone attached to a charger, and he's going to be watching this ruin because he'll be bitterly disappointed that he's not out there right now.
Yeah, Foley, as we mentioned, all the drivers have been working into their retro liveries and some really good ones for this round. Foley, I do hope we see him. He was given a sort of rolling time frame that's been changing about every hour. So, and that said, people in his neighborhood are trying to get their power back. So hopefully he does come back before at least the second race. Although I would like to see him, in the next 5 minutes would be really nice. But he's a bit more of a niche livery for him within the supercars bubble. He's put together talking about drivers who have changed numbers. He's running number 45 for this round, and he's running the 2003 Team Dynamic car. That very interestingly for the design, and it was purely coincidental at the time, but their Commodore from 03 had the silhouette of what turned out to be pretty close to a ZB Commodore supercar down the side of it.
Yeah, so, correct.
I don't know whether that's whether it's just like the Simpsons predicting the future or what that is. I don't know how they managed to get to that point that the silhouette of a racing car just happened to be what the ZB would look like 15 years later. But no, that's a little bit spooky. But obviously not running the ZB supercar silhouette down the side. He's put the Red Bull silhouette down the side as he's been running with Red Bull racing liveries for the past, I believe, 3 or 4 seasons since he started in supercars.
Yeah, correct. And the Team Dynamic one is actually a really nice job done. So I'd like to see him out there so we can actually show you that livery because it does deserve a little bit of a nod to the work that he's done with it. Very simple but very beautiful at the same time. We promised we'd have a look at the driver standings on the other side of qualifying, and that's precisely what we are going to do. So with 6 of the 10 rounds in the championship completed to this point, you can see that the picture has shifted quite substantially from the last round at Hidden Valley. So Luke Rosella now holds a very handy 126-point margin at the head of the standings. It's the biggest margin that there's been all season long between any two drivers at the top of the standings. So with 6 rounds gone, that sort of goes to show you what the series has been like so far to date. The reason that actually increased at the rate that it did, there was a 30-second post-race penalty handed down to Kurt Stenberg for a very rare offence for him, which was an unredressed contact situation he was deemed to be at fault for. So that is why the gap is the way that it is. And then it's a further 99 points back to Tim Redmond. Now, don't count Tim Redmond out of the hunt just yet either. So he's still got a fair bit of racing to do. He's the lead Kiwi there at the moment. And then Will Devonish and Pete Savage for CRE Race Engineering, the only two other drivers out of the big field to break the 1,000 point barrier at the minute. Termo will join that club tonight, and if Brenton Foley arrives, so will he, as they're just outside of the 1,000 points at the minute. Kiwi Sim Sports Dev Team with Kane Gray, or NZ Snipes as he's affectionately known, is in there in 8th, and that's actually a pretty good result for him. There's been plenty of top 10s for Snipes over the course of the season so far. Lewis Wedding and Mitch McGovern for all Australian races making up the balance of the top 10 there. And you can see that with 6 rounds gone as well, there's usually 12 qualifying sessions, and the pole award dominated by Will Devonish. He's got half of them. Kurt Stenberg's got half the fastest laps on the board as well. And when you have a look at how the rest of it shapes out on the team standings, you can see out of the 12 qualifying sessions that there has been to date, 9 of the poles have gone to CRE Race Engineering. They've been split 6 and 3 between Will Devonish and Pete Savage respectively. But Trans-Tasman Racing still has the stranglehold on the race wins at the moment. There's been a little bit of a levelling out, I guess, with Luke Rosella taking a couple of wins as well. But in the team standings, you can see there, it's just about a 500 point deficit from CRE Race Engineering in first place, back to Synergy Sim Racing in second, and plenty of teams standing still to play for up and down the field, and another 2 races tonight bring us up to the conclusion of round 7. Sydney Motorsport Park in 3 weeks' time, then our break for Enduro Cup, and then Pukekohe for round 9, and then the last round will be at Townsville. So a few drivers will be rubbing their hands together, looking, I guess, ahead of Retro Round, not so much at the racing tonight, but Rody, they'll be looking ahead and wondering where their next bank of points is going to be coming from, because I get the funny feeling that there's a few drivers in the field that'll fancy their chances at places like Townsville, and they'll fancy their chances at places like Sydney Motorsport Park coming up between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, so a couple of drivers having spent a fair bit of time at Townsville already. Townsville does produce some good racing, so I'm really happy that we've reinforced that with some racing this year to have put that as the final round on the calendar. Sydney Motorsport Park is interesting because that seems to be a very divisive track. You either really like it or you really don't. That said, I'm personally on the fence of it. It produces some alright racing, some bits of it that are fun, bits of it that can be a little bit dicky in a supercar. But like, I know Luke Rosella, current championship leader, not the biggest fan of Sydney Motorsport Park at all. And I think there's a couple of drivers out there that don't rate it too highly. But no, I'm interested to see that. I think that'll shake it up because, as a championship leader currently, obviously he's going to have to do some work to keep it because Kurt has proven to be the better race driver over the length of the season. But that might be the point where Luke's going to kind of shelve his dislike of the track to have any chance of keeping within the hunt.
Yeah, spot on. And the second man he mentioned in that breath of Kurt Stenberg, Sydney Motorsport Track is a park that he absolutely loves. Remember the last year we had the 200 kilometre race there in the twilight, which I believe is going to be a sort of a dusk twilight finish again this year, and he dominated that race. And Sydney Motorsport Park is one of those tracks that he is very, very good at. So banking a huge amount of points tonight for Luke Rosella is very, very important. The 126-point advantage that he has at the moment, he would definitely like to increase that some more just to insulate himself from any potential points going back the other way. when we get to SMP in 3 weeks. And then I expect when we get to Pukekohe, the Kiwis will definitely be putting in the laps and definitely looking to put in a good showing. I've got conniptions at the moment of seeing a Kiwi rolling roadblock at some point or another at Pukekohe because they'll all be wanting to be at the front there. And look, to be honest, I hope they do. I'd love to see the Kiwis get up there and really put on a good showing on their home soil.
It's the Kiwi round has proven to be very popular logically with the Kiwis. It was the Super 2 round last year, the Pukekohe round that saw the grid explode, and part of that was because of the swamp of Kiwis that came in. Granted, also something to do with the fact that lockdown started, I think, a week before for most of us in this region. But no, the Kiwi track definitely popular, and yeah, it's also been another source of good racing. And no, it probably wouldn't be popular with the drivers, but yeah, like a Top Gear style Kiwi rolling roadblock, you can probably get 4 or 5 cars wide, and there's 6 cars in there, multiple teams, so they could arrange that. That would be interesting to see at some point during the race. It would probably annoy the other drivers greatly, but be some good content for the broadcast.
Yeah, and you've got to remember too, there was a safety car last year at Pukekohe as well, and I think one of the races too. So it's not outside the realms of possibility that there will be a safety car brought up at some point or another during the race. There have been a few weird and wonderful things that have happened from time to time throughout our visits to Pukekohe over the years, as we have now ticked over the last little bits of practice or warm-up rather, between the quali and the race sessions, and we're not too far away from going racing at Calder Park. So 44 laps, Rody. 44 laps is a massive distance to cover. I mean, granted, it's only it's gone from 90 kilometre sprints last year to 100 kilometre sprints this year, but the track only being 2.2 Ks, that equates to an extra 4 or 5 laps. So there is, I guess, a lot of head scratching going on as to how this strategy is going to work for drivers this year, because we have seen it has reared its head. A few strategy miscues from a number of drivers, coming in too early, running the tyres too long. There's been all sorts of weird and wonderful things happen this year for supercars in general, and I wouldn't be surprised to see something weird and wonderful happen tonight yet again.
Yeah, the strategy call is an interesting one. This track, because of the short lap, is going to be more of a psychological affair than necessarily a physical one, because you're seeing the same stuff over and over about every minute, just under a minute at race pace around here. It is going to get to you in your head. It's going to be about a 50 minute session, which isn't too different to the normal lengths we've seen, but just, yeah, that repetitiveness will get to you. But the strategy, from what I've heard, is I don't think it's an uncommon thing for guys to split down the middle. There might be a bit of change one side or the other just to undercut or try to overcut, but I think the strategy is to just try and run it down the middle. I know the Super 2 guys here last week didn't have too much trouble with their tyres. The only guys that were really pushing them hard, but we're on the formation lap now. We need to get started because it's a very short lap for a lot of cars.
Certainly is. We'll roll through it pretty quickly. So Luke Rosella, championship leader in car 9 this weekend, off pole position for Synergy Sim Racing. Will Devonish, the man who's currently 4th place in the championship, has it all to do to try and claw his way back into it. He's position 2 ahead of Kurt Stenberg and Peter Savage, sharing row number 2. Tim Redmond in car number 43 in position number 5. Alongside him is Colin Warwick in car 53. Good to see Cole back out there after having a couple of stints in hospital, I believe, as well. So good to see him back out there and on the mend. Termo in the Wins coloured car in position 7, sharing the 4th row of the grid with Lewis Wedding. Then back to Synergy Sim Racing's Scott Nolan in position number 9, and NZ Snipes flying the flag for the first of the Nissan squads in position 10. Steve Burko in 11th for Loose Sim Sport. With him is Hans Brunswick for PBF Race Engineering Roadies Photos. Brendan Ross in 13th. Scott Stancliffe a bit further back than he'd ideally like to be, in 14th place. Urjit Mishra for AAR in 15th. Cheese, second of the Nissans, in 16th. Head of Peter Thrower in 17th. Cam Rutledge in the Autobahn Lowndes Racing livery in 18th. Steve Warwick 19th. Lockie Burke in 20th, a bit further back than he'd ideally like to be. And you've got Nathan Higginson in the HME Team Auto Desk car in 21st. Then back to Freakish. Ben Hall in the Mustang on the left, right of shot there. Lai Mitch in 24th. And Brian Walsh Style Wildcard is in position number 25. Here we go. We're going to get a good view of the lights here on the left-hand side of the gantry there as the cars get ready to take the start. Revs are rising. 44 laps of Calder Park awaits. The drag strip front straight is going to play host to 25 supercars right about now. And the whole shot off the front row looks like it went to Luke Rosella pretty comfortably at the initial phase of start, but Stenberg with a brilliant launch from the second row of the grid, and he should have the proper whole shot going down the road here into turn one. Good start for Tim Redmond as well, moving up a couple of spots, and Will Devonish losing a couple. And Colin Warwick looks like he's made a place or two off the start as well.
Yeah, brilliant start from Stenberg, and obviously the inverse from Will Devonish. He's been known to fluff starts, and unfortunately he's done
there's bits of contact a bit further back in the field. Sorry, Rody, there's been a bit of coming together, I think, between the Kiwis as well. Oh, and Higginson's been turned as well with the redress. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a safety car thrown here. There's cars everywhere, and there's a safety car that's been thrown. So it's happened early, and I'm not surprised. Let's go back and have a look at this one on the Smith & Sons replay, because this was a little bit messy very early on. So who got into who here? There was a couple of cars in the grass. Looks like that's the number 11 car of Ujit Mishra getting into Scott Stancliffe, who then took Cheese with him. And then they all tried to rejoin, and there was a bit of bump and grind, and Higginson got spilt, and Steve Warwick got spilt, and it's just all a bit messy after that.
I think, unfortunately, the start of that second part of the incident was Higginson, but it was Higginson all by himself, just getting on the throttle a bit early, trying to get back into, against that car was great at that point, just trying to get back onto the track, trying to get back into a good spot. Just lit the rears up, wobbled the car all over the track. There's a narrow section outside of the front straight around here, and just across the track, just guys had nowhere to go when another 3 or 4 cars brought up there. But yeah, safety car. So that potentially does remain the strategy. There is lap 1, so it does prolonging your tyre life for the first stint, which for some of the guys that were a little iffy on their tyre life, it does give them a little more to play with. But yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, seeing a safety car. I was expecting safety cars last week with the Super 2 field, just because of the big number of cars around a really small track, and yeah, it's bit earlier than we would have probably liked to see one, but yeah, safety car already in Supercars.
And already our first caller on pit road as well. I think there might be a bit of damage here for Lime Mitch as well, or maybe he's got something going on, but he's going to have to get out of the pits pretty quickly, and he's going to get her out right now and stay on the lead lap, most importantly, because the train, here it comes, choo choo choo. Is he actually going to get out ahead of the train? I think maybe just.
It's funny and not that we've alluded to the liveries in the pack, but it's funny that we've got 2 of the liveries from a film example of a guy racing to be out of the pits before the other cars in the field, so he doesn't get put a lap down under safety car, and then we have that exact moment in the race. And the 2 liveries I'm referencing, and we will see them tonight. We already seen them already. Scott Stancliffe and Tim Redmond, both the Kiwi Sports main car. They're both running throwbacks in a sense to the Cars livery. We've actually seen the number 95, the Lightning McQueen livery, which is the livery that I believe
it's a Scott Stancliffe livery.
Scott Stancliffe is running.
Yeah,
we have seen that livery referenced with Techno Autosports in I think 2017 in promotion with the Cars 3 movie. But yeah, Scott Stancliffe is Redmond running the throwback to Strip Weathers, which in turn is a throwback to the King, Kyle Petty, who is the only NASCAR driver to have won 200 races.
Going to correct you on that one. It's Richard Petty, not Kyle Petty.
Richard Petty. Sorry. That's yes. You're right. Richard Petty.
Correct. And it's ironic too, because the King's number 43, as they call it, in the NASCAR community, was referenced to when he won his 7 Winston Cup titles and his 200 races. The King always ran number 143. And also at in a Pontiac Superbird of some nature or another, or Pontiac is what the King raced for the whole entire time that he was in the NASCAR Cup. And it's ironic because the number 43 is indeed a Pontiac Superbird in cars. But we go back to racing. So that was a very short couple of laps under safety car. So everyone's back together again. And of course all the tyre temperature is gone. So they've all got to try and get their tyres warmed up to temperature again. Now can we get through without any incidents on this lap? A couple of cars a little bit taily off of the first corner. And we are through. It looks pretty clean so far. Everybody now back up to racing speed again on lap 4.
Very interestingly, fastest lap there for Lime Mitchell will go pretty soon, but because he was catching the safety car, he could continue around at full speed. But yeah, we're back to full race pace now. I think because of the tyres are cold, because the brakes are cold, nobody's trying anything too desperate for this first lap. Just getting the tyres back up to temp, just sort of sorting out where they sit on the track. No great movement to the field. It's just one big 25-car conga line at the moment.
Yeah, big massive conga line. Will Devonish is sort of caught in the middle of it at the moment. He's tucked in here behind Colin Warwick and ahead of his teammate Peter Savage as they head across the start-finish stripe for the 4th time. And they're just losing a little bit of ground here. So we know that his starts have been a problem all season long. His starts have been a problem for a long time. His race pace is where it's strong, but having that sort of notoriety over your head of having to continually claw positions back over the course of a race, it sort of doesn't bode well for you, does it? It's sort of not a moniker you don't want to have.
It doesn't. I'm going to drop you here to know that we've got a battle for the lead. Luke Rosella, Kurt Stenberg, they were side by side through turn 1 and turn 2. Bit of an over-under happened there. Nearly went too wide through the fast chicane, and that can be done with a bit of faith in the guy alongside you. But they're battling very hard now, which is going to bring Tim Redmond and the rest of the train into this. Luke Rosella just holding Kurt Stenberg off for the moment. He's got the inside run through the last corner. If he can get the throttle down, he might be able to hold him off. But the slipstream is pretty big for this track, and you can see already some F3 level snakies down the front straight as Luke Rosella's trying to drop the train. A little bit of contact there as Luke trying to cover across from Kurt, but Kurt pretty stubbornly holding his line. And Luke Rosella will hold the inside for turn 1, but Kurt Stenberg possibly trying to go on the outside here.
Yep, trying to hang around the outside, trying to hang tough. He said this at Barbagallo, tougher than a $2 steak was Kurt Stenberg, and he's definitely making life tough for Luke Rosella at the moment, but it is dragging Tim Redmond into the equation quite quickly the longer that this little battle goes on. And a bit further back as well, there is another battle that's starting to brew as well, with Will Devonish having a couple of looks at Colin Warwick on the last lap as well. And again, a little bit of touch and go through the last couple of corners of the circuit, and he's going to try and have to line up a really good run out of the final corner here, is Will Devonish to have a real go at him. And look at the big conga line that you were referring to, Rody. The top 3 have sort of broken away here, and then there's this big sort of pack of about 6 or 7 or 8 cars that have all sort of got their own little battle going on at the moment.
Yeah, so Colin Warwick very much the head of a train fast lap through there for Lockie Burke. He's doing pretty well. He's at the back of this train with a big bit of slipstream. But yeah, Colin Warwick, bit of a cork in the bottle at the moment. He hasn't had the track time he's wanted this ASR Supercars season. Obviously, a couple of stints in hospital, as you mentioned, and some other commitments that have kept him busy. And he's currently putting on the big block for Will Devonish, who very much would like to be in this top 3 battle, make it a top 4 battle. But these two in themselves are broken away, because then you've got Will's teammate Peter behind throwing a block. Ironically, well, not ironically, very interestingly, the car he's holding up at the moment is his indirect teammate in Tomo.
Yeah, it is too. And so this is the thing here too, they have a bit of a blocking. They managed to sort of clear out Warwick and Devonish for a little bit, and then under brakes, because they're trying to dice with each other, bring Savage back into the equation. There's some Morse code on the rear of car 53 by Will Devonish as the battle pack continues. But a little bit of innings going on up the front here for the race lead as well. So we're going to have to keep switching back and forth, because everything's changing hand over fist so quickly as Stenberg goes back to the lead, and now Rosella's sort of hung out to dry here, with Redmond trying to stick his nose in there for P2.
Yeah, so we mentioned we don't discount Redmond for the pace, and
a bit further back, sorry to cut you off there, Rody, there has actually been a change of position. So Colin Warwick's lost 2 spots. Savage has gotten ahead of both Devonish and Colin Warwick, and Devonish got through on Warwick as well. So now, can the CRE cars really start to kick away from the Warwick Racing 53? Oh, and there was was there a car off that I just saw on the left hand, on the driver's right there? Yeah, there was. There's some. That's the Ben Hall Mustang. So I was a bit worried there, because I didn't see there was a car that was off the circuit. I didn't see what it was, but Ben Hall off the circuit, now already gone a lap down.
No idea for Ben. No, he's very good livery on that car. We'll mention these liveries later when there's not so much racing to cover. Kurt Stenberg, fastest lap there, 56.920. I think he's pretty close to not having beaten the race lap record. We mentioned that was going to go tonight as well, so I think we're pretty close to not getting rid of that one as well.
Yeah, 56 flats a race lap record.
Yep, there's some interesting politics that we were sort of seeing down the front straight the last lap by with Pete Savage and Will Devonish. So they're coming up as Tomo's, I think, got in the back of Colin Warwick, unsettled himself and lost it and looped it. We saw some interesting politics where, as both of the drivers, I don't blame him, Will giving Pete a very wide berth to come through, and there's probably some strategy, some communications happening right now in that CRE team bunker. That Pete, a bit of a, for Will, bit of a, Peter is faster than you, confirm you received this message.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with that statement as well. Definitely a few drivers are a bit quicker. We've seen Pete Savage pull out some absolutely bonkers qualifying laps earlier in the year, especially down at Phillip Island, where guys just didn't know how he was finding that amount of time. And he's definitely quicker than them at the moment, trying to lead against all the cars a bit further forward. There you can see that the 3ZB is just disappearing off in the distance. Then you've got trio Mustangs behind. There's only two of them out of this group here that have got retro liveries on. You see Scott Nolan, who's made a couple of spots from the start. He's actually sporting a livery very similar to the Mark Larkham AU Falcon from 2000 rather. I was about to say 2001, but no, it's 2000. The car number 10 it was back in the day. Similar livery to what it looked like there. He's just made a bit of stake and he's gone straight on there. Where he feeds back in will be the killer. He might drop a spot to Wedding. And I think he will. Yeah, he will. He drops a spot to Lewis Wedding. Breaks himself trying to make sure he gets past, and that's going to probably upset Lewis a little bit there. But ironically, the car that Scott Nolan is driving at the moment, or the livery that's on that car, the AU Falcon, got its one and only win for Mark Larkham at, where do you think? Yep, none other than right here at Calder Park. The round that they debuted, the AU chassis that replaced the one they wrote off in the start line accident with Paul Morris at Oran Park in the same year, 2000. They then got it turned around with the new chassis, and then it actually had a race win here, which remained Mark Larkham's one and only win in Supercars competition to date. So Scott Nolan, I think it's probably appropriate that he picks a livery that got some reference to Calder Park. I actually like that, that there's a little bit of research gone into that one.
Yes, yeah, no, I hadn't quite realised that actually, so there's a very nice tie-in. Another one that would be good to see out here on that basis is that, as you see,
early stop.
Very early pit, very early stop.
Extremely early stop. I'm wondering if he's got some flat spotted tyres or something there and he needs to come in and get that stop served. There you go. So, and there's actually Steve Warwick's in as well. I just noticed as well. You can see just on the side of shot there's a couple of cars coming in. So early stops for Steve Warwick and for Scott Nolan. So I don't know. It's very, very early to them. They definitely should. I'm not sure if they'll be able to make it from here on the soft tyre. I did some running a little bit earlier in the week, but I don't think they're going to be able to make it from here.
The other possibility, I know that not many people have tried with them through the season because their pace just, even on the length of tyre, just isn't worth it. But I don't know, maybe they're not confident on making it on a one stop on softs, and maybe they're going on soft hard.
Be interesting. I don't think fuel's going to be the problem. I think it's just going to be whether or not you've got the tyre longevity to be able to do it. So that's the bit that sort of frustrates me a little bit as to how long they can go. And the one thing we haven't picked up on here, Rhodey, is that you will go a lap down if you're not sort of in that lead battle group when it comes in for a stop. This is not only the longest pit lane on the calendar, it's also the narrowest pit lane on the calendar, and those guys are now gone a lap down. They're just exiting the lane now. So, and the Ben Hall Mustang also going into the pits as well. It's had a few off-track excursions, so I'm not sort of surprised that it's coming in right now. This is a nice little battle we're watching on screen here between Cole Warwick and Pete Savage going toe-to-toe and giving each other plenty of respect through the first couple of corners as well. Some good hard racing between these guys.
Yeah, so the rowing panels, but you can get away with that in a supercar, and you kind of need to do that to make a move around here because it is a very narrow track. It's very much sort of too wide through essentially the majority of the track up until about the last corner, and the first corner has a bit of width to it, but it's really just that main straight where you can sort of turn around and set up a pass. But no, Pete was actually ahead of Colin at one point here. Pete, a couple of laps ago, I saw him wobble himself wide at turn one, and he lost positions to both Colin and Will, and Will's since driven off into the distance, trying to have a stab at the lead cars. He himself is currently coming in the back of Tim Redmond, who hasn't quite had the pace of the two cars in front, so that's going to be a battle pack in a few laps time, I reckon. But no, good little race here from Colin and Peter, and some good respect being shown on track.
Speaking of the man you just mentioned, Will Devonish, he started to try and hone in on the back of Tim Redmond here. He was actually quicker than the three cars ahead of him on the last lap by a tenth, so he is just slowly starting to edge his way back into this race here. At the moment, he lies about 4 seconds behind the leaders at the moment, and he's actually got that down to 3.8 now, so very, very slowly just starting to edge his way onto the back of everything. So the gap is becoming smaller and smaller every time that we look at them right now. The lead two have cleared off at the moment, and a new fastest lap for Devonish too at a 56.55, so ironically timed. Redmond ahead 57.1, Rosella was a 56.9, and Stenberg at 56.9 as well. So car number 15 starting to get a little bit of a wriggle on here as well.
So we talked about tri strategy earlier, and it's something that we'll sort of find out as the first race goes, as people are going. I'm guessing maybe, I don't know, Will, obviously not having the start he wanted didn't help, but maybe at this point just is more comfortable with where his tyre life is at compared to the cars around him. Obviously he's had to come through the field, but he maybe hasn't had to battle so much for it, as opposed to, like Redmond's probably pretty good in his tyre life, but maybe he's just earned the side of caution. And obviously the two cars in front, they've been nose to tail and mirror to mirror for, you know, about half of this race so far. So that will chew up more tyre life than you would ideally want. So possibly Will, over at least the top of the top four, probably the better or the most confident on what tyre life he's got, which is why he's able to put out the laps he's putting out.
And he's just done another 56 in there as well, so 56.8 that time around. And the only car that was far ahead of him that was faster was Luke Rosella at 56.7. So again, the scenarios continue to play out well for Will Devonish, maybe getting himself into a really decent window for a stop. And the more he keeps lapping away at that gap, the better it is for him. Further down the order, Lewis Wedding has, after that little incident with the flat spotting, he's still in where he started, up in 8th place. And this is one of the Daniel Cox designed cars that has been put up for Retro Round livery this time around. He's done 3 of the liveries in the field, all 3 of them out there, which is really good to see. We alluded to this one on our last broadcast. The Mark Martin number 6 Ford Taurus was the original inspiration for this livery back in 1998 when Ford rolled out what was then the 4-door Ford Taurus, then cut into a coupe type shape 2-door to compete in NASCAR, one of those rare exceptions. The Thunderbird had been the workhorse for Ford in NASCAR for the better part of 20 years, up against the Pontiac and the Chevy Monte Carlo. And then one of the iconic NASCARs, the Ford Taurus, although Lewis is, and both Rossi going deep at the hairpin there. That's a bit synchronised, like the maybe synchronised diving or something going on at the Olympics. They've had a big dive at turn 1 and they just completely butchered it. Mark Martin came up about 360 odd points short of Jeff Gordon in the Winston Cup title for 1998. And then Dale Jarrett got the Ford Taurus up into taking a victory on the NASCAR Winston Cup Series the following year in 1999. So really, really good idea for a livery. It actually suits the Mustang really, really well. And then behind him, his partner in crime in that synchronised diving effort at turn 1 is Brendan Ross, has taken inspiration from the very first Perkins Commodore, VK Commodore, which was PE001. Car that actually drove to 5th place at Calder Park here in what was then the Sun South Pacific 300 endurance race that was held here at Calder Park all those years ago, back in 1986. So very, very good choice of livery. A couple of drivers have put some Calder Park thought into their liveries for this year.
Yeah, and it's good to see. It's very appropriate. I mean, I think at least in real life, a lot of the Sandown retro liveries, some of them will have Sandown specific connotations. It's a bit harder in real life because you've actually got to, you've got real sponsors to demand, demands you've got to balance out and, fight over who's paying the biggest paycheck for the car and that sort of stuff. And obviously in real life, Red Bull are typically very, very strict on their sponsorships, so you wouldn't quite see something like this with Red Bull. But it's nice in the sim world where the rules aren't quite so aren't quite so stiff, that we can try these things and see in the case of Rossi's car and Foley's car mentioned as well, having the Red Bull on the side and having Red Bull stickering on it. What we would see if Red Bull were a bit more open with their sponsorship obligations or the sponsorship requirements, and some liveries might see. We've got another safety car. We've
got another safety car now. What's this one for? So this is sort of unexpected. I'm looking to see. I reckon it might be for the car that's currently in 19th place. It might be for Cheese. So we'll have a look at this one on the Smith & Sons replay. There was a car that was, or was it for Higginson? Because there was a car that was stopped. Let's get a bit of a look here. We'll get a look from Cheese's onboard, or from Cheese here. What's happened here? Oh, big slide for Higginson straight through. And Cheese was involved. So that's why I saw the car on the map that was stationary. Now, this is going to trigger a flurry of pit stops. Don't you get me wrong here. There's going to be a lot of cars diving for the pit lane, I expect, after this one is all said and done. And mark my words, here they come. So Brendan Ross in straight away. So too is Cole Warwick. So too is Brian Walsh. Pete Savage is in. So too is Steve Burko. In comes Scott Stancliffe. In comes Lockie Burke and a bunch of others as well. So I'm not surprised that this is triggering a flurry of activity on pit lane. Now, all the drivers have got to be careful here as well, because there's been a rule that's in place for this year. There's to be no double stacking. And there's a couple of drivers that have missed the trick here, I think, because Will Devonish and Tim Redmond have been caught by the safety car. And I'm looking to see if I can find where Kurt Stenberg and that are in pit lane. And they are already in the pit lane. So Stenberg's in, so too was Luke Rosella. And I've got a funny feeling that Rosella he's jumped Stenberg in pit lane.
Yeah, so there was some interesting stuff happening in pit lane there. We didn't get any double stacking, and this is something that I was thinking, I'm happy we got the safety car when we did in the first one, that we didn't see this happening, but we've seen it happen anyway. That was a race to pit lane though. Colin Warwick and Pete both racing as they were on track, then encountered Brian Walsh on the entrance pit lane, and Brian Walsh obviously a little bit sooner down the line. He might just get past safety car actually. Walsh, no, he's actually going to slot right in. So this will be interesting to see where he pops out or not. No, it's there was a race to pit lane there, and the two lead lap cars were similarly confident under brakes to the line, knowing where the line was, as opposed to Walshy, who, wildcard, he's just here to have a good time and hopefully not get in anyone's way. One of them passed him on the way into pit lane. The second one, Pete, ended up running with him side by side down the lane. Luckily, Walshy was pitting fairly early, or there would have been a bit of a collision in pit lane with Walshy in one of the stock cars. So they do manage to get through all that, and I can see there's a second bunch of cars now pitting the guys who missed it the first time around.
Yep, so that covers off Will Devonish, it covers off Termo, Hans Brunswick, Lewis Wedding, Tim Redmond, NZ Snipes and Peter Thrower. So they've all come in to get their stops done. So they've come in a lap later. They're not going to sort of worry too much about where they feed in. For Will Devonish, it means he's gone from what was effectively third place in the race because he had passed Tim Redmond on track. He's now fallen down the order to 9th. And that puts Wedding to 10th and so on and so forth behind. It actually means that Cheese, who was out there and involved in that incident, actually has led a lap in all of this, and he's actually just come into the pits now, which will then cycle the field and put Luke Rosella back to the head of the field, which there he is there. And there's a few little things yet to shake out, I think, with how the safety car has gotten some things to go on here. So drivers will have to sort of figure this one out. So you got Rosella, you got Stenberg, and you got Cole Warwick. They're all in that shot there. They're going to catch the back of this train here that's got Cam Rutledge, has got Nathan Higginson. These guys have all got to get past the safety car ASAP.
Another driver, James, to make people bidding. Another driver I'm seeing in the lane now. I'm not sure whether he missed it or what's happening, and it probably isn't helping. One driver who might have potentially benefited somewhat from how the rest was going was Nolan, the early stop. He's in the lane again, so he's going to drop a long way down. He is going to be on fresh tyres, but so is the rest of the field, I would imagine. So whatever alternate strategy Nolan had planned out in the FSR garage has backfired on him with this safety car, and he's going to start. He's going to start the restart off of near enough the back of the grid.
Yeah, he is too. There's just been some directions just being issued by race control to make sure all the drivers that are behind the safety car that are ahead of the race leader, Luke Rosella, need to get past the safety car ASAP. The safety car has gone in, so those guys need to bugger off very, very quickly because otherwise they could be at the risk of going a lap down. Luke Rosella's doing the right thing here, holding racing speed. Holding the safety car speed as close as he can so they get to the line to allow those guys to scamper off. The safety car just booking it down pit lane, absolutely booking it down pit lane, and we go back to green flag conditions. So Rosella will defend here from Stenberg with Cole Warwick, and then behind him Burko and Pete Savage. Steve Burko's made his way up the order rather handsomely as well, and there's already a three-wide little battle going into turn one with Devonish on the inside, Wedding caught in a sucker hole, and Brendan Ross on the outside. and they somehow managed to sort themselves out. Will gains 2 spots, and on we go.
Yeah, I'm surprised that one as well as it did, because 3 cars into one do not really work at the first corner without, a bit of arge and barge, and that worked out. So yeah, so the big shuffle from that order, pre-safety car, is Burko is now up to 5th. It's pushed Redmond right back to 9th. Rossi also now up in the top 10, with Luke in there as well. Sorry, not Luke, Lewis, who's having a look at Will Devenish there through the last corner. I mean, he's not quite there, but he will get a good slipstream run down the straight. Also, one of the Kiwi Sims with Nissan in the background as well, so good to see them up. And I think that's Hans right at the back of the first queue. And he was in the pre-safety car. He was down in, I think, last place or near enough too after an unscheduled stop. So that's a good recovery for Hans.
A couple of passes being sent here. Wedding backs it in, almost slides it through the corner, NASCAR style on Will Devenish there. And Brendan Ross trying to go with him as well. So Wedding had a really good tow down the front straight and used that to full effect. And Brendan Ross is through on Will Devenish as well. So 2 cars through on Will Devenish in the first couple of corners of this 24th lap. And Pete Savage was unsuccessful in his attempts to get past Steve Burko. He's running in a season best position at the moment of 4th place. The livery that's on his car is one he ran in Porsche Cup last year, or very similar to the livery he ran on Porsche Cup last year. And I will say this now, very, very good choice of sponsor on the door for that one as well. The Beyond Blue sponsorship. There's plenty of good work that they do in the community, and good to see that Burko's supporting the cause. Same way along the lines of Andrew Butcher, Improved Production Victoria, with getting awareness out there for the Epilepsy Foundation. It's good to see some drivers putting sponsorship on there, or just even not even sponsorship, just raising awareness of good work that some of these people do in the community. And another spot for Lewis Wedding, so he's managed to slip past Savage as well.
Yeah, just quickly, we're talking about some of the good causes that you can promote with supercars. Some of the PBF cars also on their window speaking the it's okay to not be okay message as well, which is good to see. But no, Lewis got a bit of a charge at the moment. He's probably got a little bit of fire under the collar. He's had a bit of a busy week. He's had a couple of days off for the last few days, which has probably helped to ignite that fire under his bum. This is also the last night we're going to see him in the Supercars main series this year. He will be replaced by Damon Woods in the 777 car for the rest of the season. But Lewis, I suppose, with a point to prove, and to prove that he hasn't had the practice he's wanted to in the last little while, but he does have the pace of some of the top guys in this championship. Yeah,
trying to go out on the high here as well. So, and this is not only season best position for Lewis Wedding at the moment as well, but season best position for Lou Simsport with cars 4th and 5th on the road at the moment, and doing very, very well. A bit further back behind them, there's still a nice little pack as well. You mentioned Hans Brunswick has sort of latched onto the back of NZ Snipes here. He's trying to get himself another top 10 finish. He's still the first man outside the position at the moment. Hans with a big send at turn number 7 and also 6 and 7. He couldn't get it done. He'll have to give that spot back because that's gained advantage by going off track, and he's done the right thing there. But he's got a really good run off the final corner here as well now. So Snipes will have to give him some space on the inside here. They've just dropped off the back of the train ahead of them with all of that little thing going on. Hans should go through into a 11th place temporarily here, and looks like he's able to consolidate the pass there. The livery on the Nissan looks very, very familiar if you're an astute follower of supercars for NZ Snipes. The number 1 Gibson Motorsport Nissan R32 GTR from 1992 was the livery that car came off. And whoops! And he's gone for he's got a bit for an adventure here. So he's off the course, and just got it all wrong through the fast chicane, and he's find himself getting on a thing there. So the minute we start to talk about him, we call this the commentator's curse. He's going to come on with a bit of room to spare, but he's going to be a bit fuming in the cockpit there. If you're not familiar with the "you're a pack of arseholes" comment from 1992, then you need to go back and watch the podium interviews from the 1992 Great Race, because that was the year that the car that this livery came from was classified the winner when the race was red flagged at lap 143, and Ford and Holden fans were none too pleased about it.
Yeah, I don't get why you blame the car that's in the lead for being in the lead when the red flag was caused. I mean, it's not like the R32 caused the red flag. Actually, no, from memory, did he? No, sorry, no, from memory, actually, they might have caused the red flag.
No, they were caught up in it. They were caught up.
They were caught up in it. Yeah, so they weren't a direct cause of it. Like they just happened to be in the lead the lap before, but that's not. It's not their fault. The red flag happened.
No,
like the accident would have been an accident regardless. Like they were an innocent bystander caught in it rather than the direct cause of it. So I don't know. Motorsport fans are weird like that, and I suppose it's because the Mount traditionally, the Aussie mecca of motorsport. The two big Aussie brands, Ford and Holden, and you have the Japanese imports come in with their twin turbo 4-wheel drive Skyline that not the Sierra wasn't already a bit of a hack job of the rules with infinite power and a big huge turbo. But then you get the Skyline coming in twin turbo 4-wheel drive and just pantsing the field, and I'm not surprised they're a little unhappy, but it wasn't their fault.
No, definitely not. And I mean, they only had to wait another 12 months anyway, and then it was the end of the Group A regulations as well. So they didn't have to wait too long for it all to then become what was known as the V8 Supercars back then as well, when it got to 1994 and everything all changed. Now, the race leader, I'm just noting here as well, is just starting to encounter some of that lap traffic that did have to bugger off after the safety car got called in. They had to pass the safety car ASAP, and he's now starting to come across them and wake them all up. And he has got a little bit of an advantage here, Luke Rosella, over Kurt Stenberg. Stenberg had a little off-track moment at turn 7 a lap ago, and all the lap traffic actually doing a pretty good job here of getting out the way as quickly as possible, although it's very, very badly balked Stenberg at the wrong part of the course, and Cole Warwick to boot as well. They're going to have to make their way through fairly quickly, as we've got a drive-through penalty for Scott Nolan. So
that'd be for track cuts.
There you go.
He was coming out through the last corner, so I'm guessing probably just a bit of too much of a hack of some of those last corner. The last couple of curves, but Comedian was just coming out of the lane, but this is a very long penalty and he's already off strategy and this isn't helping, so he's going to drop to the end of the lead lap. He's actually going to drop off the lead lap. I've just seen the lead cars come through. So Scott Nolan a lap down, not the sort of comment we normally hear for the SSR driver.
No, and here he is the onboard, just tootling down the pit lane at a pedestrian 40 kilometres an hour. Not only the longest pit lane and the narrowest pit lane on the calendar, but one of those ones that goes for an absolute eternity. Here he comes. So not a good night so far for Scott Nolan. It was pretty good for the first half of the race. He was in strong position and then had that very early stop, which we thought was a bit uncharacteristic. And he now gets back up to racing speed, and is actually the third car one lap down. He's actually just been gone a lap down to Cheese as well. So it's been lapped by about half the field with all of that being said and done. A bit further back, Lewis Wedding has found his way up to 4th position with everything going on. So he's got past Steve Burko, who's now also been passed by Will Devonish. And this was a little bit of a train for a while ago. So there goes Devonish chasing after Wedding, and then behind them you've got Burko ahead of Pete Savage, Tim Redmond, Brendan Ross and Hans Brunswick is the last man inside the 10. Turmo's the man that's been shuffled out of the 10 at the moment. 13 laps to run here. It's going to be a little bit of a longer race with the two safety cars involving themselves, as the 4th and 5th place cars are now still having to try and pick their way through this lap traffic.
Yeah, so a little sort of just happy obviously that they keep their line. You can also use these guys as a bit of a pick. I mean, the race you had with Burko would have just been a formality. Obviously, team drivers, they wouldn't have wanted to go another safety car as well, as everyone checks up and avoid each other. And I think it's the
Hype Sim Sport
7-up car, the Hype Sim Sport car.
It's off the road.
The Berkey, so a bit of a mistake there for Berkey's team. He was already, I don't know whether he was lap down, and also what's happened. The timing thing. He was something like that. I don't know.
Here we go. We've got
he was off the track there, and that's unfortunate for him. So that puts him in our lap down.
He's given the wall a massive wallop as well. We're just looking at this on the Smith & Sons replay, and then consequently what's happened is he's gone to hit the brakes, and the car's just not wanted to cooperate there, which is a shame, because another one of the Daniel Cox design cars has had a few issues tonight. This one, of course, based off the Jordan 191 from Formula One circuits in 1991. Interesting, I think, Brady, we'll talk about this during the week as well. The same car, not only Michael Schumacher made his debut in the Belgian Grand Prix in 1991, but his son, Mick Schumacher, actually got to drive that very car this week at Silverstone in the shoot day with Corinne Chandhok was up there and a couple others were up there as well. 30 years almost to the day that his father got to drive the very same car.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. And I think the livery was picked for one of two reasons. One, because height energy drinks were actually a very minor sponsor on that car in 1991. So that's where the synergy comes for them. The other reason, though, apart from being a good livery and the Schumacher thing just icing on the cake, is that Luke Rosella, not shy about it, the biggest Bertrand Gachot fan you'll ever meet.
Oh yeah, he is.
That'll be why one of his drivers, Lockie Berkey's sort of rookie driver, is running a Bertrand Gachot / Michael Schumacher livery for this round.
Very nice pass by Will Devonish there as well on Lewis Wedding going into turn 1 and consolidating through the chicane. Probably our pass of the day so far. We'll pull this one up here on the Smith & Sons replay and have a look just how he did it. Wedding covered the line into turn 1 as you do, and Will just plain drove around the outside of him. Good respect, a little bit of rubbing there as well, and then Lewis gave the game up pretty early and actually took a fair bit of curb, a little bit of air going under those right-hand side tyres, and Will Devonish safely through for position number 4.
Yeah, talking about air on the tyres, one thing that we didn't get a chance to mention, but we can mention it now, is the tyre bundles from yesteryears are gone, so cars aren't going to die that way, but the curbs are still pretty steep. There's some good anti-cut put on the backside of those curbs so that you're not yeeting it like you would otherwise. And yeah, a couple of times drivers have got a long way up from the wheels. There was a point in practice, I think last week, Supercars, where Nathan Higginson was bouncing on his mirror. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see someone roll it tonight. I've already seen Rossi, I've seen it from Lewis, and a couple of drivers just running very hard over some of these curbs and getting a long way on the two wheels. So if somebody does roll it, and it's not unknown for supercars, we have had it happen a couple of years ago, I recall a roll during racing, then yeah, it wouldn't be surprised, but it would definitely be a sight we haven't seen for a while.
No, definitely not. Speaking of Nathan Higginson, we were just saying he was involved in a very, very nice stoush there with Lime Mitch for positions 15 and 16 on this lap as well. So despite the fact he's missing that bonnet after hitting the cheese, or coming together with cheese as part of that whole incident that caused the first safety car, the second safety car, he has managed to still soldier on, get a fistful of points, which is good to see, and he presses on. The car behind him is very, very interesting livery as well. Not a car that I would have expected a livery to base off. Luke Rosell has done a fine job at creating both the AAR Mustang liveries for this round. The one for Lime Mitch is actually based off of Colin McRae's 1999 Ford Focus in the World Rally Championship. The only two wins that McRae got in that Ford Focus were at Kenya and Portugal. He also finished 4th in France, and then every other race apart from the first one at Monaco, which he was disqualified from, he didn't finish. Yeah, so it's an interesting place to pull livery from, but although it does still, and much with the other car, which we'll mention later in the day, they are both Ford heritage. I didn't think it would be a place to come from, but the livery actually worked out quite well. I know, like, Lewis wasn't a fan of it. He loves to criticise liveries, and he's not very much a fan of seeing Martini and golf cars, and this livery was a Martini livery in the day. It's obviously now Tamiya, which is one of Luke Rosella's preferred brands, but no, he's done a really good job turning this into a Mustang livery, and it works quite well. Yeah, he has, and this is, I guess, the way that people go about doing some of the retro liveries as well. You sort of take your own sponsors and try and merge them into your livery pack to make it fit nicely. Now, these two are about to get lapped by Will Devonish, so here they go. So Mitch down allows Will down the inside. Higginson will probably do the same in the next little bit as well, and he does. He hasn't done it just yet. He probably will do it in turn 1, I'd imagine. As we keep an eye on what's going on here. Pulls over to the left, and so to the right, lets him go through. And that's a job well done there. So smooth sailing for Will Devonish. Now, the bit that we probably need to pick up from him as well is how is he going with tracking onto the back of Colin Warwick. Last couple of laps, Will's definitely been quicker. He's been quicker to the tune of 1.2 seconds last time around. Oh, there's been a bit of contact situation here between Higginson and Lime Mitch. Doesn't look like there's going to be a safety car for this one. Higo's got to get himself turned the correct way and get going. He's done a good job there. So a little bit of coming together. Looks like it was on corner exit. Let's pick this one up on the replay as well and see what happened. He was a little bit out of sorts, and he mucked up the chicane there. And he's done this on his own. Oh, a bit of wheel-to-wheel contact as well off in the corner. Maybe a little bit of room not afforded. I'm not quite so sure.
Yeah, whether it was just tonight, doesn't seem to be a favourite spot for Higo to spin. He did go off there in part of the incident towards the very first safety car as well, and I think he did spend some time last week in Super 2 venturing upon that same patch of grass. So favourite camping spot or picnic spot of Nathan Dickinson there in his Silver Bullet throwback.
Camping. I was about to say camping's for people that play Counter-Strike, so it wouldn't be a camping spot. I didn't think they even allowed camping here at Calder Park back in the day.
Good point. Yeah, that is only, I think, tracks like Winton, I think, is one of the few tracks I've seen anywhere sort of camping near or around Bathurst as well, obviously.
And it was good to see that the last state round at Winton as well, that they actually reinstigated camping for the very first time in a very long time as well, because they had such a sheer number of entries that they wanted to encourage people to stay on site. I mean, a lot of people know that getting hotel accommodation in Benalla and places nearby is at a premium. And a lot of times when Supercars are on, when state rounds on, so it's good to see them open up the camping opportunities for a long time, which is always a bit of fun, always something a bit different. And because it was not winter, and which means it wasn't freezing at Winton as well, so good idea from the crew up there. And with 4 laps to run, Car 9's got a pretty healthy margin at the minute. He really is showing no signs here of cracking under pressure, Luke Rosella. He's lapping a couple of tenths faster than Kurt Stenberg behind. He's got a nice little margin of around 3 seconds. Has had a really kind run through the traffic. Tyres seem to be holding up okay, 57.4 that time around. And Stenberg was we're just waiting to see what comes up on our screen. I think it was a 58.5, and that was traffic affected as well, having to get past Lockie Burke. So I think he's got this race win almost in his back pocket here, Luke Rosella.
I think I didn't expect to see, actually. I was just looking to the lead cars. Somebody's pitting. And
yeah, it's Colin Warwick. It's Cole Warwick. So you're spot on. I was trying to work that out too.
Either short on his fuel or his tyres were not going to make it, but he was running pretty comfortably in fourth just behind Will Devonish, and he's going to lose a bucket of spots. Obviously, it is a little bit of time post-safety car, so we don't want to lose too many. But, you know, he is still going to go near the best part of the lap down. He's just passing Scott Stancliffe's car, which I was going to mention at some point. We did actually see Scott Stancliffe drop out a few laps ago, and I'm not sure whether that was for incident or whether that was internet drama, but that's a shame to see that car out. But yeah, he's back on the way now from Warwick, and he's going to drop in. He's just gone a lap down, and he's going to drop back in probably 14th or 15th. I think
he's actually going to come out behind. He's going to come out behind Will Devonish, who was the man he was battling before, right? So there he is, off to the side on the right-hand side of your screen there, coming out. So not only he was actually ahead of Will Devonish, he was in third place on the road, Colin Warwick, before he came in for that stop. So Will's gone, and not only he's taken third place away, but he's now gone a lap down to Will Devonish as well. So that's we put this one down. We call this at the beginning of the night the strategy miscues. A few drivers that came in a little bit early probably shouldn't have come in a little bit early. But what worried me though for Cole Warwick is he was in that second group of cars, I believe, that had that came in a bit later than everybody else on that second safety car period. So quite sure what's going on there, whether there's just maybe, as you said, mucked a fuel strategy up or something going on there. Oh, there's been a spinner on the front straight. It's Lockie Burke for the second time, so he's had his fair share of dramas for this one. There he goes. We'll have a look at that one on the replay while we've got a little bit of time to take a look as well. I think Kurt Stenberg had made a bit of a meal of some things. Oh, there was I see what happened there. There was a bit of an issue for, I think it was the Peter Thrower Nissan in the last couple of corners. I think Lockie Burke's just put the power down too early here, has he? Yep. Basically did what Kurt Stenberg did last year, just got a little bit too greedy on the power on the outside of the corner, and all that serves to do is pirouette you in the direction that you are turning.
Yeah, and the same for Burke. He's had some good pace this season. He's been at the front in Super 2. He's been sort of holding around the back of the top 10, top 15 in Supercars. This race, at least the first race tonight, not his night, but hopefully he can bounce back in the second race.
Hopefully so. One more lap to go for the championship leader, and the man who has car 9 this weekend as well in Luke Rosella. So it's a good opportunity for us on this final lap of the first race of the evening. to have a little bit of a chinwag about this car. He wanted to run this car deliberately because it had number 9. He was asking very, very early in the year about running this car. Originally, the car came with the Synovus Vitamins livery on it, which was actually run with the Alan Moffat racing team. It was an EB Falcon in the day that it came out of. This car debuted in 1993 at Bathurst, and it ran in EB guys pretty much with a similar livery, with a couple of very small modifications all the way through to up and including 1996. So that's where this one comes from, and he's done a really good job there, the Synergy Sim Racing boys, of integrating the JK Signs livery in place of the Synovus Vitamins logo that was there in years gone past. But he's going to chalk up another race win and extend his lead in the championship picture. So great job for Luke Rosella, comfortably ahead.
Late mistake for Kurt Stenberg.
Stenberg has made
a bunch of spots.
What's he done here? So that means Devenish goes through to second. It means Lewis Wedding's going to be on the podium ahead of Redmond. Burko, there's a bit of chaos going on at the back here as well. Burko's going to get to P5. So what's happened to Stenberg? Hans Brunswick to 6th, Termo 7th, Stenberg 8th. I reckon he has. Mate, he was in that first group of cars that came in for a stop. Maybe something's gone on there. I'm wondering, we'll have to go back and see if we can pick this on the replay somewhere.
Looking at this post, he's just coming down to turn 1. He's driven, it looks like he's got the rear on T-tray, so yeah, I think he's lost the rear tyre, and it wouldn't surprise me. Higginson was having issues with his tyres in Super 2, and yeah, and like they were running pretty, I think, about half race distance. The safety car came just before the half race distance, so I think Stenberg has lost the tyre. So yeah, that promotes Lewis onto the podium, Redmond into 4th, Burko into 5th. So that's still, I think that's still a career best or a season best result for both of the Loose Simsport, as a team. Hans Brunswick, we missed him in a lot of that, but he had to battle up from essentially near last on track after an early stop to finish in 6th, and very great performance for Hans. 7th for Termo, and then 8th for Stenberg. Peter back in 9th, with Snipe sneaking into the top 10.
Yep, Snipe sneaks into the 10. You can see it there, yeah, you're just looking at it here. So Devenish got past him pretty easy, and then everybody else, I think, as you can see here, he's just nursing it all the way home. And yeah, it's a, what is it? It's a left rear? I think it's a left rear tyre failure.
Left rear, looking at that. Yeah, it's just not anywhere near stable as you want it to be as he's going through the right-hand corners. Obviously, the last corner being a big, long right-hand corner.
And there it is, and he had a loop, and he spun as well. So Wedding got through. Good evasive action by everybody there. Good driving as well by Stenberg to try and get through there. And there was a bit of an issue there, I think, maybe with Burko and Hans at the end of the day too, as they were trying to tag up to avoid. I reckon Higginson lost a tyre as well after all that, because he was right out in the grass. And that's what happened at the end of the day. So late race drama, everybody coming back into pit lane, and well, Luke Rosella might be rubbing his hands together, I think, on that one, and wondering, geez, what have I just inherited here?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously Luke was going to win. He was going to extend his points, but not by nearly as much as he thought he would, because he was, probably pretty comfortable that Kurt's going to come home second. It was going to be, a marginal advantage, but still advantage Rosella. But no, that's more than he could have asked for.
ASR's Supercars
and then
Championship.
just some of the drivers behind you were having, like, Lewis was having a good race. I wouldn't necessarily say on pure pace it was a podium-worthy race, but he kept it on track. He kept his tyre life in there. So Lewis is on the podium. Obviously, good for Will. He's not in the championship hunt as much as he'd like to be this year, but that's still going to be a good help for him in sort of more a rivalry stake. And it's just very interesting how all that's panned out.
It definitely is. It's panned out very, very interestingly after all of this. So what we might do, Rody, is we'll go to our first place man for Luke Rosella for Synergy Sim Racing. And Luke, another race win in the books, which is good. You've got a couple this year now. But this one, it's one you would have probably wanted to bank some points, given that the next round, Sydney Motorsport Park, is not your favoured circuit. But any points you can take when you're ahead of your championship rival, you got to take them, don't you?
Yeah, you're spot on, Never. Really, really happy with the result. Race 1, it's everything we could have asked for. Very interesting race. At the start, me and Kurt were battling pretty hard and wasn't really good for my tyres. So I sort of just decided to, drop back to second place and, sort of conserve in that first stint and then push real hard in that second stint, maybe even doing an undercut. And then, the safety cars really changed it. And it was pretty debatable with people in the Discord channel. I was in either going hards or softs. We chose the softs, and we just had to drive for a number for that second stint.
I was about to say, how tight was it at the end of the day? Because a number of you came in, as you said, at that second safety car, which was a bit of an awkward time. It wasn't quite half distance. The safety car did give you an opportunity, I guess, to save some tyres a little bit. We saw a couple of drivers struggling really, really late in the session. How bad was that number that you had to drive to make it work?
Pretty bad. Just drive as smooth as possible. Really conserve that right side of the car. And we're planning to make the magic number 22, just do it half, and I think we got 20 laps out of that second stint.
Yeah, about two laps short of the half distance mark when the safety car came out. Yeah,
so race 2, if it's green running, it's going to be very interesting how people play it out, because softs, it's going to be pretty debatable if the race is going to go green. But as I said, really happy. Car's really good. And we extend that buffer for Sydney, which is not, as you said, not one of my favourite tracks. So pretty good.
And a bit of late race drama as well makes the win even sweeter. So well done, and get yourself ready for race 2.
Thanks, Ever.
Well, Benjamin Roddy Rhodes has decided to go off and find Will Devenish for his little chat, and he's with him right now.
Yeah, so Will, pretty good result from where you're sitting. How did you go about managing that race?
Yeah, it's as Luke was saying, it's pretty much racing to a number, unfortunately, with this sort of, especially tonight. You just have to try to keep the same lap time lap after lap, but then also manage how much percentage you're taking out of the tyres. So we've managed to do that. Second stint, I think we got the tyres a little too hot towards the end, so they were gone on that last lap, but it was enough to drag her home in second. So pretty good result there.
Yeah, and then obviously as well for the CRE Team Championship, which is where your focus is this year, you also had Pete running pretty well. I think he finished 9th in the end. But was it good to have both the team cars up at the pointy end for a good point of that race?
Yeah, in general, it was a pretty good finish for the team. We got Termo was pretty stoked to get his 7th. Pete, solid 9th. He, sort of watched his last laps. He didn't actually have any tyres, and I don't know how he pulled it home, but he did. And Cam had quite a few missteps through the race, but still managed to get 16th. So can't really complain with those sort of results.
Absolutely. All right. Good luck to you and obviously the rest of the CRE team for race 2, and hopefully you can pull something else out of the hat.
Thank you.
And lastly, we'll go have a chat to surprise podium sitter for tonight, Lewis Wedding.
Lewis, it's been a bit of a dirty week, I think, from a few people's point of view, but let's not dwell on that. For yourself and all the work you've put in for ASR this year, this is probably a sweet moment from my perspective.
It's been a pretty shit week. So won't dwell too much on it, but the person involved, I would like to actually apologise for actually what did take place. But anyway, on to tonight. Coming into the racing, particularly in the practice sessions, I thought it was absolutely nowhere. Obviously, some people would have had a little bit less fuel on, but took the fuel out of it. It was okay in qualifying. I was able to put a decent lap together. Got a great start, but had nowhere to go. And from then on, it was just hoping the tyres would make it. Safety car made it interesting. Or both the safety cars made it interesting because I didn't think of it about pit the first time, but in the first one to sort of offset the tyres a bit. But staying out sort of paid off. But the second one was a bit touch and go.
Well, when the safety car came out for the second time and you were in that sort of second group of cars to come in and pit, and how all the safety cars sort of mixed up everything with how long the pit lane is and that, you sort of had a bit of a renewed vigour. We saw you pass several cars at the very beginning of that second stanza that third stanza rather, after the safety car cleared away for the second time, and you really seemed to sort of be in that little bit of a zone, and you just kept plugging away at it. Eventually got passed by people like Will Devenish and that, who were trying to make their way back up to the front, have the better race pace. But I guess it goes to show that just continuing to plug away and hit your marks and hit your numbers all the time, at the end of the day, can pay its dividends.
Yeah, I think because of the really cold temperatures at this track, I played around. At the pit stop, having a look at the start of the sessions, the pressures weren't right. So at the pit stops, I made changes all around, and it meant that pretty much coming out that I was going to have pretty better speed than those people that have been circling behind the safety car. So that worked out pretty well. Also ran a little bit of a unconventional setup with some other stuff that paid off, particularly coming out of the corners. So I wouldn't expect myself to be up here again in the next race because obviously I think people are going to probably sort their tyres out. But after the safety car, I thought for a moment I was going to be actually a bit screwed because obviously there's no double stacking for this round. I knew Burko was right in front of me, so I saw him go in and I knew I couldn't pit. So I just had to drive the next lap flat out to sort of until I caught the safety car to sort of try and not lose too much time in positions. But thankfully, didn't lose too much time there. And it seemed to work out, even though I thought, stopping that one lap later would be stuffed. And then at the same time, Will was sort of dawdling a little bit, catching the safety car. So we only just caught the queue right at the start finish line, pretty much. And he got a poor getaway. He was dawdling a bit, and I passed him just after the line, and that pretty much set up that second stanza.
Well, at the end of the day, if you do end up on the podium for a second time tonight, I think you'll be more than pleased with it. But you definitely got something to have a chip on your shoulder about after that one tonight. So go and let you get away and get yourself ready for race 2, and we'll see what you can do. If you get a good enough start again, who knows?
Thank you, and big thanks to Coxie for putting this livery together for me.
Yeah, big shout out to Daniel Cox as well. He has done a fair bit of work with some of the liveries over the year so far. We'll take a short break, and we'll be back with qualifying 2 in just a few moments. ASR's Supercars Championship in 2021 is proudly brought to you by Smith & Sons Renovations and Extensions. Smith & Sons, design, plan, construct. Cam Rutledge Electrical, and Matt Harvey Repair and Shoon. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're not too far away from going into quali number 2 for tonight's second race. Rhodey, what a mixed up race 1. Oh, he's serves me right for trying to actually get him queued up when he's actually probably gone off to get a drink. But I'll wear that one. I didn't look at what his little logo said, that he'd actually gone and muted himself. But anyway, it was a very, very big mixed up race number 1 and race number 2. Not too far away. We're about to enter qualifying for the second time. We're just having a bit of a look. I don't think we actually broke the track record for the race trim on that last race either. We definitely broke the qualifying lap record earlier in the night. And if I go back and have a look at the fastest lap of the race last time out. It was actually held by Colin Warwick, 56.4, so we were some 0.4 of a second off breaking that race lap record. So I don't know if we'll go close to breaking it for the second on the second race tonight, but we'll soon find out, because quali session number 2 about to kick off in the next few minutes. And sad to see Brenton Foley doesn't look like he's actually been able to make it for tonight. So obviously that power outage that's affecting his area is still causing a few dramas. But we'll definitely wait to see if he can make it. He's got one more opportunity after qualifying's over. Rhodey, before we go to quali 2, your thoughts on race 1?
Yeah, no, that was it all worked out in a pretty, like, I expected there to be at least one safety car. The two didn't really surprise me, because we talked earlier today about that, the longest run down to turn 1 followed by one of the tightest turn 1s on the calendar. It's going to cause some chaos. That wasn't actually where it happened. It was turn 2, turn 3. But then, surprised that second one triggered the way it did, because we've had bigger incidents at other tracks and it hasn't happened. It's just some of the track characteristics there. But no, I think some of the drivers now probably going to be looking at some hard tyre strategies, especially those that were really iffy. Like, Higo being in the position he was, he wants to get home and get some points. And Kurt Stenberg, he's now on the back foot. He's now, giving away points he didn't plan to give away, I think, at any point this season. He's going to find something in the second race. The ever-present danger of a safety car, that especially if it's a couple laps before or after the midpoint of the race, do you pick the safety car and then work out strategy, or do you stick to strategy and lose some spots here, or what do you do? And we'll see that in the second race, but we've got qualifying for race 2 on now.
Yeah, we sure do. Good amount of the field already heading out. Apologies, my voice is already starting to go, so I think Rhodey might be doing the heavy lifting with this one.
Good. So, all the drivers coming back out on the track now. I think we've got most of them out there. Just going to cut through to find who is at the head of this queue.
Peter Savage, the first man, I think, that's out at the moment. He's managed to pass freakish on this opening out laps.
Yeah, so he'll be getting off the queue at the start. He has got a couple, there's a little bit of traffic ahead of guys that have just made out the lane. It's a very, as I said, 20, 25 cars. There is a lot of cars, but not a lot of track space. But he does look like he's in a clean run for his first lap. So he's coming through turn 2 and turn 3. Looking at his car, actually, this is the, I don't think we talked about this car yet, but I will quickly bring up the notes we've got on this car. And this is obviously the Sprint Gas livery. It was run in, if I grab my note, there it is. It was run in 2009. It was the Tasman Motorsport livery. It was the last year of Tasman Motorsport. Obviously, the ex-Lansdale Smash Repair team became Tasman Motorsport, and regular season drivers for this car, the 2-car team, was Barguana and Murphy. And it makes sense that that this livery was chosen, because Tomo, who put together these cars, is a big Murphy fan. It's why he's running, why he's run some of the liveries he's run in the past as well. A big Kelly Racing fan, big Perkins fan, and also big Greg Murphy fan. So Pete to the top though, that's immediately supplanted Nolan up there in second. We didn't expect to see that after the first session. And Kurt Stenberg to the top, although he's just been supplanted also by Luke Rosella. We got a couple of yellows coming into turn 1, and I heard at least one person have a big fend at turn 1, guessing just getting a bit too ambitious on the brakes, or maybe getting the rears out on the exit curb or on the grass and mocking them up and sending themselves down that way. But he's already being replaced at the top, although he is on an improving lap, and it is Will Devonish now to the top. That's a 56.275, and most of the drivers now sitting a lap. So Luke Rosella sitting second, Kurt Stenberg third, with Nolan fourth, and Peter up now, still in fifth. Tim Redmond up in sixth now, although we've just seen another shuffle in the order. I think that's Peter now up to third, so he's only 2 turns off the lead. And Luke Rosella now jumping up as well. Oh, sorry, no, it was Kurt Stenberg. So still very tight at the top. And I wouldn't be surprised now with a bit more track time, even after all the work they put into before tonight, that we're going to see that time topple again. And Will Devonish, I'm watching at the moment, he is up on his own PB by 0.1 of a second through the final sector. Also,
and here he comes now as well. So Rosella's 56.000 now is beaten by Devonish with a 55.940. So already, again, same sort of thing we saw in qualifying number 1. The positions at the top of the timesheets changing very, very quickly as the bar continues to get lower and lower and lower.
So yeah, so that's about halfway through the session at this point. Drivers only top of that. Just going to cut across to our live timing. And if you're not watching our live timing, you can find it at asrleague.liveraces.com, and it will give you a pretty up-to-date view of what's happening on the track at any point in time. It's just not working for me at this point in time, but I'll just do a quick refresh. Oh, you might need to come back for replay for that. I've just seen Will Devenish. We talked about how steep these curbs are, and Will Devenish having a big go at turn 6. Very nearly rolled the number 15 Lounsey Commodore.
Yeah, here we go. So down to the fast chicane, over the left and the right. All good. And it was the next corner that got him, I think. Yep, so on the inside there, yep, well up on 2 wheels. And that's probably the biggest moment we've seen so far tonight.
Yeah. It's the closest I've seen so far to anyone rolling it, and there's still a chance someone's going to try a bit harder in the race, but quali sessions are definitely the make or break a lap. So you'll see people pushing, 11 tenths on the track limits on what their cars are capable of to just get that extra little bit of time. And Will's been pushing hard because, again, bit of individual glory doing well at any given track. I mean, he hasn't had the pace outright of Luke Rosella and Kurt Stenberg this season, and even I suppose of Tim Redmond, who's currently sitting in 6th and doesn't look to be improving on this lap. But no, that team championship, ever-present opportunity for Will Devenish and CRE Race Engineering to make a claim on the records for the year. And no, the better he can do, obviously, it helps him out, and obviously the better they can get Pete up the leaderboard as well. And Pete himself is currently sitting in 5th, and he's got a bit of traffic to contend with. There's a lot of cars now flying out. He's got Luke Rosella in front, and also NZ Snipes, who is currently sitting in 13th and probably wants to go a little quicker than that. Yeah, correct. So he's got a bit of traffic he needs to deal with at the moment here, coming through the back part of the circuit. And so far, it's not been too bad for him. He's only on an out lap anyway, so if anything, he probably just needs to back off and give himself a little bit of room. But I get the impression you probably want a bit of a tow from the cars in front coming along the front straight here as well, through the final corner. Taking that sort of early apex and sort of feeding it all the way out to the line. We might go on board with a lap with Pete Savage if we can. So let's have a look from the cockpit cam. Not the cockpit cam, sorry, the roof mounted hamburger cam. A couple of cars coming out onto the track just from the pits, so that's not too bad. Braking around the 150 or just beyond into turn 1, down to 2nd gear. Most drivers are using 2nd gear for this part of the circuit. Now some drivers are going up to 3rd and back to 2nd here. Depending on the gearbox ratio you're running, you might end up being better off leaving it in 2nd gear and just buzzing the limiter if you're getting close to it. You don't want to change gears through the flip and flop, through the fast chicane. You get up to 5th gear, braking for the 3rd chicane rather, about the 100 board. Again, 2nd gear, big 2-wheel moment for Savage there. Feed it through here. Some drivers going up to 3rd and then back to 2nd. Again, some drivers keeping it on the rev limiter and then feed it through the last corner and then pull gears down the front straight. Was there an improvement with all that big air time? We did lose a couple of tenths of each sector, and that hasn't been an improvement. One driver who has improved that we missed in all of that is Kurt Stenberg, now at the top. And he's done a... the timing just clicked back through. He's done a 55.828, so that's over a tenth of a second up on Will's best time. So whether Will's got any more in the bag, we don't know. Another person we haven't seen who's going to probably still make a claim here at some point is Luke Rosella. He is on a lap though, and he is setting purple sectors. Purple sector 1 for Luke Rosella there. So if he can keep it the way of traffic and he can have a clean rest of the lap, we might see a new person on pole position in about 20 seconds time.
Yeah, last few laps are starting to be logged here, I think, as well. If we cut to Luke Rosella through the final corner, he's up on the PB, but he has lost a little bit of time on the pole time, so this might be enough to lift him up to the front row of the grid. And it is.
Yeah, so that was a big wiggle. He's only just down on the pole time for the last sector. It was a big wiggle for him as he came through the last of those chicanes, the little sort of the long left, short right chicane that goes under the bridge. So a big wobble off the curbs and just a little bit of air time that obviously lightened the load off the rear wheels and had them wiggling around. So he will go again, and he's got another probably 2 or 3 laps he could put in. He's actually interesting up on the pole time there for the first sector, but not up on his best time. So I'm guessing the fastest car out there though through sector 1. Yeah, some of the big hitters now starting to set some times. Pete's currently sitting up in 4th. Nolan's still holding on in 5th pretty well, considering We didn't see him too far up the front in the first session.
He's actually moved back up to 5th. He'd been sort of
Oh,
shuffled
yeah,
back
good
down the order to about 8th or 9th after the first flying laps, and he's actually found a little bit of pace in this second qualifying stint. So that's a good result for Nolan. I think it's probably on track to be his best qualifying effort of the year if he can keep it together for the next minute.
Yeah,
He's actually boarding. He's actually boarding the lap. Sorry, Roddy. He's actually decided to abort that lap, so he won't be going out again.
But yeah, that's Nolan done, and there's no more time left for him to get out and get back across the line. So Nolan's pretty set with what is now 6th as Pete jumped up, but also Luke Rosella now to the he is now to the front. So I'm not surprised he's over the pace. It is only by the smallest of margins, although ready to answer back. Kurt Stenberg is on a good lap. He actually managed to catch some traffic there through the final sector marker. It was Nathan Higginson and Pete both in front of him, but he has managed to get through them. And no, for a really poor run out of that final corner, and we mentioned it in the Super 2 broadcast last week that final corner is pretty crucial to your lap, because not only does it set up your current lap, but it also finishes your current lap, it also sets up your future lap. Nathan Higginson won't be going again. He's just absolutely centered at turn 1, not planning to. He's just very much outbraked himself into turn 1.
Crucially for Stenberg, he gets another lap, but at the moment, I think he's going to abort that one. Yeah,
he's done. He's done as well.
Yeah, he's done. So that's the end of that one for him. Kyle Warwick's still on a lap, so we'll stay with him for a little bit. So Luke Rosella currently on pole from Stenberg, so a little bit of a different looking front row, but then Will Devonish is actually up on the PB and up on the pole time. He might go to the top here, and he comes to the line, and he does not. He loses time out of the final corner.
And it's all in that final corner run. It's some really uneven sector splits at this track, and it's all in that final corner run. It's all in the accident. It's so tempting to get on the throttle, but you risk spinning the wheels up because you're turning while accelerating, and that puts extra load on the tyres. So that was unfortunate for Will. So in the end, only 3rd for Will, that is. And I think the car's capable of running. Ended at Snipes, so he just pops up to 7th in the end there. So good run for Snipes to sneak into the top 10. Ujit Misha up to 11th as well. But I think we are all done with cars on track. So that is pole for Luke Rosella.
Yep, correct. Pole for Luke Rosella.
For Kurt Stenberg. And if he starts or anywhere near as good as they were in the last race, Luke's going to have some fun down in turn 1.
From the rounds he's contested. First appearance this year, Adelaide. Second appearance was at Phillip Island, and he's obviously been in hospital in between as well. Both him and his father have had some stints in hospital this year as well. So good to see that they're both on the mend and both back out there enjoying what they do, which is doing some sim racing. And so there's the guys were your top 5 after that one there. So a couple of front row starts for Luke Rosella. Does him no disservice whatsoever. And Will Devonish right there in the thick of it again, but unlike the first race where he was on the front row, this one he's on row number 2. So pretty much reversing the position that he started race 1 with Kurt Stenberg for race 2.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see again how this goes. It's going to be down to the starts again, and yeah, Kurt had an absolute blinder off the second row of the grid there, and he was very nearly at the front. So either Luke's going to have to pull something out of the bag, or Kurt's going to need to fluff a start for it to be anywhere near probably fair on the way down to turn 1. I'm not sure Luke likes the sound of those odds, but based off the starts that I've seen so far tonight, that's where it would swing. And yeah, Whitley's further back by 1 spot where he was, and I suppose the only somewhat advantage for him is he's on the racing line. So if he bottles the start, he might not lose so many spots because cars will want to be where he is on the way to turn 1, as opposed to last time where he was stuck on the inside. So, but no, I'm interested to see that. And a couple other drivers we actually have lost. No, I can look at the list here. A couple of drivers who I didn't expect, or a couple of drivers I expected to be a little better off. Rossi's down in 12th, although to be fair, he hasn't had the best qualifying performance at all generally tonight. Scott Stancliffe stuck into the top 10. He's down in 13th. Burko's in 14th after doing very well in that first race. Hans Brunswick, after recovering back to 7th, has qualified in 15th, so he's got another big drive on his plate. And then another driver, probably a couple other drivers a bit further down, Higginson down in 19th, Cam Rutledge in 22nd. So I'm guessing it's not really gelling for him. And then a couple of non-qualifiers, I think there as well, Ben Hall and Brian Walsh.
Yeah, Brian Walsh actually mentioned he wasn't going to qualify for this one. He's been pretty good just to stay out of trouble and sit at the back and not have to worry about too much for things so far. He's been doing a pretty good job actually as the sole wild card, which is it's good to see. This is probably one of the only rounds that Walshy really had left as a Super 2 entrant to wildcard. We try and take into consideration drivers' past performances as well as tracks that we think that they'll do well at, and as well as trying to spread it around a little bit. And this was the one that sort of came up for Brian along with Tasmania to say, look, we think this is probably the best one for you, and he agreed. So good to see that he knows what to do and he knows when to get out the way and all those sorts of things. And he's out there just to not only to make up the numbers, but the strange part was during the week he said, I've somehow found half a second, and that's because the traction control switched off. So he's actually done a pretty good job to learn how to drive without the traction control.
Yeah, and it's something that probably will benefit him going forward as well, because both assists in AMS, it depends on the mod. You can actually set it up within the car's vehicle files as to what penalty you'll get in terms of your horsepower with adding some of these assists on. But no, TC does help you out of slow corners, and if you lack some of the throttle control or the patience in the right foot, but it does also penalise your power. And yeah, Walshy, I don't know, his finding he didn't need it, and then his finding he really didn't need it. So I don't know, maybe we see going forward that Walshy doesn't need to use traction control, and he might pick up a bit of pace that way as well. But it's one of the two assists that we did run previously in previous seasons. We did allow you to run under, I believe it was the gold silver handicap, or it was a Pro B handicap. But this year we elected to turn traction control off and leave ABS on, and there was conversation at one point that ABS would come off next year, and I'm not sure where that conversation sits at this point. But it's interesting to see that, yeah, some drivers that thought they maybe couldn't manage without traction control, learning that it's actually not as hard as they thought. And obviously, because there isn't a handicap on their horsepower from having that on, they're finding a bit extra speed as well.
Yeah, it's something that I sort of used to run because I'm a bit of a social racer, and I did that one sort of appearance at Barbagallo in Super 2 not a that long ago, and started learning with the traction control off. And Barbagallo wasn't too bad a circuit actually to learn about it because of the long loading of the corners. You kind of worked out pretty quickly how to balance the throttle. Did a couple of laps at Calder here the other night, and there's a few corners that sort of tempts you into applying the power a little bit earlier than you would otherwise like, especially out of the final corner. And especially out of the first corner. They were the two that I think were a lot of people that haven't had a benefit of racing with traction control before have been sort of struggling as getting out a bit wider ideally than you would like to be, or thinking, oh, hang on, I'm going too slowly, I need to pick up the throttle. Wrong mistake straight away.
Yeah, I've probably been one of the heavier users of ABS, and something that I do intend to wean off at one point. And actually, I've been doing all right in the ASC Championship where they do force off ABS, and I'm not done terrible there, although I've not been able to yeet it under brakes as much as I'd like to for that exact reason. But no, I've only ever used traction control once. It was a GT3 round last year when we were running at Okayama, and I was in the Viper, which had mountains of torque, and Okayama is a lot of first and second gear low RPM corners, and in the Viper it just wanted to spin the wheels, and it was past the point of, I can manage it to the point where I was having to go half throttle, half the lap. So I just went, nope, bite the bullet, we'll take a bit of a power handicap, which wasn't an issue because the Viper had every bit of power available, and it ran its traction control, which was helpful in that case. But no, I personally, from where I sit, I prefer the traction control does allow you to get the rear out, and there are some cars where it does help to break traction sometimes in getting through a corner or getting power down. Like a case in point, in sort of a race start situation, you do want a little bit of wheel spin before you let the wheels bite, and there's a bit of a balancing act there. I know some guys use the line locker, and we have actually enabled that as an option this year. But even then, some people do still prefer the manual start. I've done a bit of both across a couple of different Supercars series this year, and actually found, depending on the track, and even then, some guys are actually getting better starts without the line locker, despite the ease of the line locker with your start. And theoretically, it's better. So I'm starting to switch back to the manual start again. But it's one thing is because you can spin the rears and get a little bit of bite, a little bit of spin, and then bite the rear and get the rears to bite, rather than just burning your clutch up. You can actually get a better start with a bit of wheel spin, which turning traction control off, turning traction control on, does limit your ability to get that wheel spin off the start.
Yeah, correct. It's one of those arts that I think a lot of people need to learn at some point, is how the game operates, and the different aids, I guess they call them, or driving aids, that'll actually have a benefit or a negative impact on your driving, depending on what you want to use. But everybody out there's got the same set of driving aids that they need to be able to deal with, and that's the low ABS and, of course, the no traction control setups, which is going to be the same that carries over into the Enduro Cup season, which I've alluded to a couple of times now. Got this round, we've got the Sydney Motorsport Park round in 3 weeks, and then we'll be off to the very first of the Enduro Cup rounds in September, which is going to be the Sandown 300. So we look forward to that one. Just waiting on a few drivers to grid up for race number 2 here. We had 2 safety cars in the first race. We're not 100% sure if we'll have the same in the second race or not. But Rhodey's going to roll us through the grid in the next few seconds. Once we get the last car out onto the grid, which is Luke Rosella. He's taking his time, but there he is. And a few eager beavers ready to get going for the grid. And now we're away. Now Rhodey can start.
So starting from pole is Luke Rosella and that number 9 Cenovis throwback livery on the with his AK Sign sponsorship for Sydney Sim Racing. Second is Kurt Stenberg in his throwback Dayco livery, with Will Devonish in third. Fourth is Pete in the Sprint Gas livery we talked about just earlier, with Colin Warwick in fifth. We will talk more about this car during the length of the race. Got a really cool retro livery between this and Steve's car, which we'll see later. Scott Nolan in sixth, very good performance for him in the number 18 Sim Racing car, with Endet Snipes in seventh. Lewis Wedding surprise podium sitter for that first race up in 8th, with Tim Redmond in 9th, and Termo completing in the top 10. Ujit Mishra in 11th in the number 11 Tamiya Mustang. Great Rouse Racing retro livery, we'll talk about that one later as well, with Brennan Ross in 12th in the Perkins throwback. Scott Sangcliffe in 3rd in the Lightning McQueen livery, with Steve Burko in 14th. Hans Brunswick in 15th for PBF Race Engineering Roadie Photos Racing, with Lachlan Burke in 16th in that Dawn 191. Keys in 17th with Lime Mitch up in 18th. Better actually video chance to qualify in my last race. Nathan Higginson in 19th, and Pete Thrower rounding out the top 20, with the rest of the cars being freakish. Cameron Rutledge, Steve Warwick in the second of those Warwick cars, Ben Hall in 24th, and Walshy starting off the back in 25th as the sole retro wildcard.
Good strong 25 car field. Brent Foley's still a bit sad that he's not able to make it out there. He had the Team Dynamic number 45 car ready to go for this one. So they'll grid up and how we go. An early safety car in race 1. Again, get a good view of the lights as we await the start here. Might be just somebody I think possibly is out of position here as we get the start lights. Here we go for first time tonight, and second time tonight. We are away, and fairly handy start again off the front row from Kurt Stenberg. Once again, king of the starts. Big launch. He had a good launch off the second row of the grid in race 1. Off the front row of the grid, even better this time around. He's going to lead the field into turn 1. Behind him, Colin Warwick's going to shoot the gap on the inside of Luke Rosella, and it's going to be 2 ZBs going to take the top 2 spots for the beginning of the race so far. A little bit cleaner through the back part of the guys at the back of the field this time around. We stay safety car free.
Yeah, sport yellow there. Somebody I'm guessing around in the background, but no. Good start for both Kurt Stenberg and Colin Warwick there. Not a bad start for Luke. He just wasn't as good as the cars around him. Another car not as good as the cars around him, Will Devonish. I mentioned those bad starts, and he's come back to bite him again. He's now sitting down, I believe it was an 8th night. There's a car running wide as well. I think that might have been, that wasn't Pete, it was it was a red car wide. It might have been Scott Sandcliffe, potentially wide there at the back. But coming into turn 1, down the front straight to finish the first lap, Kurt Stenberg leads from Luke Rosella, and then a massive gaggle of cars behind.
There's a nice little battle forming here as well between Pete Savage, is going to go door handle to door handle with Colin Warwick on the run down to turn 1 as well. Is he going to pull the Devonish trick and go right around the outside? He's not going to struggle to get it stopped down there, and Colin's going to very smartly take that position back. So a bit of an audacious move on lap 2 at turn 1. But I guess you've got to try something every now and again to upset the apple cart, catch your opponent off guard and try and figure it all out. Stenberg's bolted here. Rosella's trying to catch him up. and leaving Cole Warwick to throw out the anchors here. As Savage has another look down here at the inside at 6.
Yeah, so these two had a great battle for a good part of that first race. They're getting into it already for the second race. Not only that, they're going to block up the cars behind. Lewis Wedding diving past Will Devonish there and having a look now at Scott Nolan. So Lewis having a big run as well. He's going to want to try and stay clear of these two. So he's going to hope that, Peter's past Warwick or Warwick's cleared out before he gets these. He doesn't want to get caught up in this battle as well. But Colin Warwick now moving over to protect the inside from Pete. Pete now sort of boxed in by Scott Nolan on the outside, so Nolan eventually might have moved. There's
a
Pete's
punt!
right under brakes.
There is a punt. There's been some contact there, and I was about to say something's going to end in tears very shortly. And for Cole Warwick, it looks like it was him. There was some contact there. We had a good view from Scott Nolan's on board, and Pete Savage knows he's done wrong here, and he's going to redress that spot and give it back. So that's smart heads-up driving. Worthwhile of a look at the Smith & Sons renovations and extensions replay for how that one happened. We were on board with Nolan when it all went wrong. So here we go. Here it is on the front straight. And yeah, just missed the braking marker. That's all it is. That's all it takes. You miss your braking marker by a couple of metres and you're into the rear bumper of the car in front. So error on Savage's behalf there. He knew he'd done wrong. He's redressed that spot and got it over and done with as quickly as he could. The cost in a big battle pack like that is rather costly.
Yeah, so they're going to have to fight back to the field, and actually they're doing a good job already. Colin Warwick looking up the inside of Snipes with Pete behind him, right up behind him. Pete's very smartly on the brakes a little earlier than Colin Warwick this time, not to repeat the last lap all over again. But these guys are
going to end in tears again though if they're not careful.
Side by side, Colin Warwick and Snipes. Snipes very respectable racer, same with Colin Warwick, so they should get through this pretty well. Snipes definitely doing his best to try and hold these guys off though, and being at the start ahead of him, they are a little quicker, so he's doing his best. But Colin now through, and Pete's gonna have a look down at this right-hander. He might just get there. Snipes had to give him a bit more room than I probably would have. I don't think Pete was quite alongside there, but Snipes, erring on the side of caution, which is the smart thing to do in the long term. And actually, he's now on the outside, so Steve Burke's going to get through, and him and Lime Mitch might have a run at the Nissan now on the way down to turn 1.
They might. So the Kiwis are starting to get mixed up in a couple of battles here. So too, the Kiwi Sim Sport cars, Tim Redmond up to 6th, and Scott Stancliffe's made 6 spots. So he's the prime mover and shaker on the opening couple of laps, or for the opening couple of laps rather, in car 90. It's got 2 car numbers. It's got 95 on the actual bodywork. It's got 718, which is the traditional number for Scott Stancliffe on the door, and the windows and everything there. It's got a little bit out of shape through the fast chicane as well. But, good to see that they've made a little bit of progress through here. Lewis Wedding has made some good progress. Hans Brunswick's probably made some good progress as well. He's up 7 spots. So again, he's another one of the prime movers and shakers on the opening 5 laps of this race, and very firmly inside the top 10. He's benefited from a little bit of the calamity that's gone on ahead of him in the opening couple of laps.
I think he was doing this as well in the last race. He's just, for whatever reason, the car maybe just not quite attuned for a qualifying 1-lap dash, but he's got some very good race pace and probably very consistent on his tyres. And this has been something Hans has been known for. He ran Super 2 earlier this season while he was here in broadcast. And some of the races like Phillip Island, where tyre conservation was a big part to play, Hans had the tyre conservation of cars in 2nd, 3rd and 4th, but was lapping 2 tenths, 3 tenths, sometimes half a second quicker than those cars, despite making the tyres last just as long. So a little bit of a trick up his sleeve, and Hans knows his way around engineering a race car. So I'm not surprised he's managed to get both a bit of tyre life and a bit of pace out of these cars. I will take a minute to self-indulge and talk about his retro livery, because this is the one I painted. This was the one I was going to run before Hans took over the car to actually give it some quality airtime. And it is based off the 1991 Opel Omega Ermscher livery. Ermscher was the team that ran the Opels in DTM, and this was the ATS number 37 that was run by Verkel. I'm going to butcher this entirely, but by Verkel.
Don't even try. Don't even try.
Yeah, no, okay. Run by Mr. V. Thrycek. And no, not particularly strong car, the Opel in DTM, but Mr. Thrycek is now the managing director of Opel Performance Division, so obviously a big fan of the Opels himself, and we've swapped the ATS stickers out for LSN, standing for Loose Sim Network, and Lewis has been pinging me incessantly since before I even announced my first livery to be on the car, so I had to give him something. And Hunt was a big fan of, same Flute Rosell, a big fan of the DTM liveries from this period, so they were both frothing when
sorry to cut you off there. There's been I think Colin Warwick's been turned at the final corner, and he's going to have to wait an awful long time to get going here. I'm not sure if there was it looks like there might have been some contact. Let's go and have a look at this one on the Smith & Sons replay, because he was caught between Pete Savage and Steve Burko, so wondering maybe if Burko's run into the back of him here. We'll find out. Colin was a little bit deep. Yeah, there's a little bit of contact there. That doesn't look good for Steve Burko, I'm afraid. And
dropping down the order, Burko, but not as quick as he'd want to be if he's trying to redress. So I don't know whether he's sort of tried to thought about redressing, then sort of giving up the ghost because of the time difference. But he's now down in 16th, which is a couple of spots back from where he qualified, but he's still not redressed that, and he wants to do that soon if he wants to avoid a bigger penalty.
Yeah, correct. You've got to get it done. If you're going to get it done, you've got to get it done on the same lap. But I mean, in a situation like that, the final corner, you're pretty much going to have to do it within a lap. But I think you're right. I think he's probably realised that he's tried to redress it. Cole's a bit too far behind, and then he's probably going to have no alternative but to take the post-race 30-second penalty that goes with it, which, if I'm being brutally honest with you, I probably would take, because normally at a pit lane like this, where the pit lane is extremely long, 30 seconds is actually on the generous end of the stick.
Yeah, we would always stand the PLP of 30 seconds for all tracks, regardless of what the track actual pit lane length is. I know, like, Simmons has been unpopular for that penalty because Simmons' pit lane is a lot shorter than 30 seconds, but this track is a lot longer than 30 seconds, so it balances out across the season. And yeah, it is better than taking a drive through, and it is probably better, somewhat selfishly for his race, that he stays out, takes the 30-second penalty afterwards than even going back and regressing the whole way, because it's going to put him back with Colin. And Colin is, I think he's off the back of this train that's sort of pulling here behind Nathan Higginson. He's a good 4 seconds off the back of Lockie Burke.
Yeah, you're right. It was a bit of a shame too, because we were about to start talking about this car. This is one of the ones you alluded to. We're going to have a chat about in this particular broadcast. We sadly haven't been able to get through all of the liveries that are out there, so we might do a little special thing in Discord after this one's over, where all the research has gone. So a couple of bullet points about each one. But Cole Warwick, car 53, the car based off of Bill Patterson A9X Tirana, all the way back some time ago, back in 1977. It was the team that was formed out of Peter Brock selling the team to Bill Patterson in 77. They then took 3 cars to Bathurst, and Phil and Peter Brock finishing 4th outright in the car that year. Another one of the cars finished 7th, and the third one was a DNF. And the A9X was a very, very popular weapon to have in the late 70s. The other car in the Warwick Racing stable is the one that Steve Warwick has got, which is picked that one up on the broadcast a couple of weeks ago when the liveries were first getting revealed. The livery that was on the car, driven to 2nd place in the 1979 Hardy Ferrotto 1000 by Larry Perkins and Peter Jansen. It was 6 laps behind the eventual race winner of Peter Brock. And believe it or not, the original A9X Tirana that this livery was on and is still on, sold recently for $900,000. I am not kidding you. A over 40-year-old race car selling for almost $1 million.
Well, I'm not surprised. The only thing that I feel bad about with a purchase like that is for how much it was spent. I very much doubt we're going to see it on track anytime soon, because it's a shame. There are plenty of categories out there for you to run your period correct racing car in. There is Group A and C where it could be running in, and I don't think we'll see it out there. But no, I'm not sure where the money is coming from, and I'm not sure why the costs are going up, or the price tags are going nearly as high as they are. But no, there's it's a good investment, it would seem to us. One of those, things we would have not known 20, 30 years ago. It seems to be a good investment to buy a 60s, 70s period racing car, even if it isn't, a race winner. But as long as it's something that has some history to it, it's a little iconic. It's a good livery to be running.
It certainly is. These two have got a little bit of history at the moment. Wedding and Tim Redmond come together in GT3 a couple of rounds ago. Laguna Seca, Lewis defending, had a little bit of a look at Scott Nolan down at turn 1 on this lap, and then had to play the defensive game with Tim Redmond for a little bit. Scott Stancliffe's right in this battle as well, ahead of Hans Brunswick. So this is a good little battle group here that as we start getting towards the pit stop windows, how this will all plan out. I heard Luke Rosella's comments about looking at splitting this one down the middle potentially, and 22 and 22 laps on the tyres. That'll be interesting to see if they can actually make that last, given the pace that some of them are running at. The pace has sort of dropped off. It's into the 57 zeros for the front two at the minute. These guys are all in the 58s, so they're really driving to a number if they're not trying to defend each other from themselves.
They're under a number, or they're that far off. But like we've seen at some tracks, the difference between hard and soft was something like half a second. It probably wasn't too bad at this track. There's not a lot of high, high grip corners where you would really suffer from being on a hard tyre. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of these guys potentially are on a hard tyre. In terms of making the tyre last, I mean, the lead drivers outside of Kurt Stenberg and outside of Higginson, well, not a lead driver, but in terms of drivers who blew tyres, outside of those two, they managed to make their tyres last, 24 laps in that last stint from when that second safety car finished. The 22 is they've already done a lot of them. It's just they can bring the pace up a little bit, but they need to know by how much, and they need to make that decision sooner rather than later, because they don't want to be pushing too hard on their tyres and then have them run out with 2 or 3 laps to go. So it's still a juggling game. It's just potentially even harder because the data they have from the first race does and also doesn't really give them a picture of how hard they can push.
No, definitely not. And Scott Nolan doing a very, very good defensive job at the moment, holding off the advances of Lewis Wedding. Done it on 2 or 3 occasions now. I'm wondering whether it's only a matter of time, and I think the matter of time is now, because it looks like Nolan might have just cracked under pressure, gone deep at turn 6. He's going to cough that spot up to Wedding. He might cough another one up here to Tim Redmond, who's just leaning on him through the final corner, and now is going to have the high ground on the drag race down the front straight. Now, who do Brunswick and Stancliffe go with, or do they form their own little train like they do in NASCAR?
They go with each other. Oh, that
got feisty.
That did. There wasn't any overlap there, but only just. That was, I think Stancliffe was always in fair, but he has thrown from that position up. He's given Brunswick plenty of room to cut back under on the inside, and he's got through. So that's another spot up for Brunswick. Now up 8 spots from the start, so he's on a big charge.
I'm wondering if there was a couple of locked brakes going down to turn 1 there. I'm not sure if Nolan got just escorted a little bit wider than he ideally liked. They didn't quite catch it, but Redmond was right there dicing with Nolan. Maybe it might have been both of them locking the brakes. There's a yellow flag out here in this sector, so there's no passing. Who's the car that's off the track for this one?
Possibly one of the cars behind.
No, it's Ben Hall. There it is,
the
Ben Hall Mustang. So second time he's been caught out, and I guess doing the right thing by staying off the track, letting everybody go past, and is now safely rejoined, and the battle pack down the front straight continues. There is another battle pack that's going on down here, and this is a really interesting battle pack. It was headed by Higginson at one point. It is now headed by Steve Burko. And, here we go, flash of the lights for Cole Warwick. I think he knows that maybe it's time that Burko gave that spot back, but it's a bit late now for that to happen.
It would be the moral thing for Burko to do, but he is past the point where even if he does at this point, all he's going to earn is that moral victory and a bit of respect. He's not actually going to gain anything in terms of a time strategy. So it's up to Burko. Depends on how he feels as a racer within himself. There's no rules governing that he should at this point. But Colin definitely feels he should. But no, this will be an interesting battle, and I don't know whether Colin will let bygones be bygones, or whether he's going to,
Whoa! Too wide through the chicane at the back. It was Steve Warwick, and I think it was Cheese that went absolutely side by side through that flying chicane. And Termo, I think, has taken advantage of all of that. We're watching from the curb cam. It was a ridiculously good shot. Let's go back and have a look at that one on the Smith & Sons replay, because that was wild. That was absolutely wild between these guys as they came up to the chicane. And, there they go. That's what it looked like from that angle. There was all sorts of things going on there.
Yeah, so that was Steve Warwick and Freakish in one of the four.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, one of the 4 Kelly Racing, not Kelly Racing, one of the 4 Kiwi Team Sports Ultimates. Sorry, the Kelly Racing is running one of the liveries the Kelly Racing team.
Whoops! And I think we might have a Mustang might have just exited stage right there. Yep, indeed it did. Yep. It was Ujit Mishra, so he was caught out on the wrong side of that equation, and he comes out of that little battle group. So he was on the wrong side of heaven there. Wasn't on the righteous side of hell, he was just on the wrong side of heaven, and heaven, the angels didn't agree with him and said, nope, you're going off this part of the track right here.
So what we're going to do, I just want to quickly mention, just to try and get some of these liveries. His livery is based off of, it's the Roush Racing Mustang that ran in GTO in the late 1980s. Anyone who's got Forza 7 will see it as the default livery on that car. But again, as we mentioned with the previous car, some more niche history for Ford that Luke Rosella was brought into the retro round, and he's done a pretty good job with this one as well.
Yeah, I like the fact that there's been a bit of homage paid to not just supercars in this year's retro round, but we're going a bit further abroad. We've got, you can see here the IMSA GTO category. We've got the other sister car to this one, the Colin McRae type livery as well. We've got stuff coming from overseas in various different forms. There's so many different ideas and so many interpretations. It's great to see them. In the one that you mentioned earlier about the Hans Brunswick car, being the Opel livery from the years of DTM. It was sort of that car sort of formed the foundation from a lot of things like the Lotus Carlton and things like that went into the UK market. So there's been some very, very good interpretations of things and bringing them into a bit of a modern day touch, and everyone's done a really good job of sort of trying to fit them around the body lines and the things that go with each and every car.
Yeah, no, just quickly to touch on that one actually, something I didn't mention, something I will mention just to rile up, just to try and get some angst in any of the hardcore Holland fans that are watching. Yeah, no, it is true. All your Commodores are based on German cars, and or are based on Opels, and my particular Opel, the livery based off the 91 car, was the basis for the VN through the VP. It was VN through to the VF Commodores. So they're not as dinky-die Aussie as you'd like to think.
No, correct. I mean, that's why they end up with the Lang Lang Proving Grounds to actually go and test a lot of that stuff that was coming over from Europe and all the other manufacturers and things when they brought them in, just to make sure they were fit for Australian conditions. I mean, they might have been tuned for Australian conditions, doesn't mean they're necessarily built here in their entirety, as Brunswick makes another spot, goes back inside the top 10.
I think we're starting to see probably Hans was a little off his size. He was a little further up, so a little mistake there for Hans at some point, but we're starting to see the cars pitting. I think somebody got the early stoppers. I want to start to see some of the leaders come through in the next couple of laps.
Speaking of the leaders, here they are. So Rosella and pursuing Stenberg. This gap has come down and stabilised for a little bit at about 3 seconds. Stenny's just getting a little bit loose here through some of these corners. You can see the mid-corner slide that he had going through turn 1. Wondering if the tyres are just starting to disagree with him, because Rosella was about 0.4 of a second quicker last lap around, and Rosella did jump Stenberg in the pit stop sequence through the first part of the race last time as well. So it's about lap 20 that they came in through the safety car and did jump him on pit road. So this is now critical for Rosella. Does he actually wait? Does he send a pass when he gets a chance to do so, or does he decide to go through? No, Stenberg goes into the pit. So this is, again, a little bit early. Maybe Stenberg's worried about those tyres, depending on what happened last time. He's going to have a little bit of work to do. There are some other cars in the pit lane as well, and a few cars exiting. So there goes Steve Warwick. Who's in the lane there at the moment, Roddy? There's quite a fair bit of traffic in pit lane at the moment.
So Will's gone through. Lewis has stayed out. So Stenberg is in. I think I saw another car in there as well. Brian Walsh is in. Ujit Mishra also in. Most cars seem to continue on though, which makes sense because to split down the middle you need to finish this lap. So I think most of the cars have gone through. Ujit obviously a little wide early at one point, so maybe he's been pushing his tyres a bit too hard, so that's why he's in. And Walsh is just in just probably to play it safe. He's not here to try and push the envelope of tyre strategy. He's just trying to finish and just trying to keep it clean and have some fun. So I think most of the drivers we'll see, and a couple of drivers I'm seeing, have got the wrench over their next to their cars, so they'll be coming in, I assume, in the next lap or two.
And Rosella's covering. Rosella's covering here, Rhodey. So in comes Luke Rosella. You can see him just on the other side of the barriers there in pit lane. And Will Devenish, most importantly, goes through. So another lap.
Pitting is Scott Stancliffe, Pete Savage in as well, and probably Pete and Will have been in communication. So Will went around another lap to make sure Pete could get in. And then Snipes, the next car through, he's also pulling in, along with Hans Brunswick, sitting in ninth at the moment. Cheese goes through, and then the next two coming past the pit lane is Steve Burko, who's in, and a lap car of Lime Mitchell goes past. But yeah, I think we're seeing most of the cars. Nathan Higginson goes through, and Tomo, so they're going through for another lap. And I think that might be the last of the bulk of the cars pitting. There goes Freakish. So I think we're going to see probably the rest of this field cycle through in the next lap, and I see a lot of those cars that have cycled will be one half of 2-car teams. And obviously they can't run both teams through the pit lane at once.
Correct, and Will Devenish is in this lap. Here he comes right now, so committed to pit lane, gives Stenberg back another lap. So this is important for Will Devenish because he's gotten past the half distance mark critically, so he's going to have a little bit better tyres to fight toward the end. So there's about a 2-lap imbalance now between Devenish and Kurt Stenberg, and both Stenberg and Rosella have stopped, and Rosella has jumped Stenberg again. So this time it's the overcut for Rosella, going a little bit longer. Stenny was a little bit ginger on his tyres toward the end of that stint, and Rosella goes through again. So very smart pit strategy.
Yeah, he's going to have to hold him off now because at the moment, Stenny will have the warmer tyres, but once they get up to speed, Luke's got the fresher tyres, and yeah, there's Kurt just trying to make the best advantage he can, and he knows that, I think he knows back in his mind that Luke has the better tyre strategy, the better tyre conservation in this second stint, so he needs to make as much hay as he can while the sun shines, so he's got some sort of margin, or at least some sort of track position to be able to defend from Luke Rosella at the back end of this race.
I'd argue he's actually probably got to try and hold Rosella up as much as possible, use the dirty air to his advantage, and just keep him at bay. Devenish exiting the lane now, so he's not too far behind this battle, but the battle's starting to become traffic affected. Yeah, so Brendan Ross, they come out of the pits, and he was very attuned to what's happening around him. He got out of the way pretty quick, smart. Talking about the lead, Lewis Wedding he's pitting a lap 24, so he's wanting to run a shorter, fast stint in the second stint. Cam Rutledge still out there as well. He might, if he goes around another lap, although I don't think he will, looking at those tyres. No, he does. So Cam Rutledge will take the effective lead of this race. Well, that's a good sight to see for Cam Rutledge because it's been a long time since he's been up the front of a field, and Lewis Wedding going through again. Wondering if these guys have gone onto a hard tyre. I'd hate to think that they have. Let's look at Rutledge's time. So his best time was a 57.7. His last lap was a 59.5. So they probably are starting to drop off.
He's on softs. Yeah, that does indicate that it'd be on softs with that sort of speed drop off. The hards are never quick, but I think they do take a little longer to start to really go on you. So no, he's staying out. He's just managing to outpace the lap car behind him, which is Ben Hall in the number 19 Harvey Norman Mustang. And yeah, Cam probably going. No, he does just been able to piss off, so he is going to be coming in this lap. So he's probably just pushing long against the guys he's racing to try and a bit deep.
Yeah, a bit deep. I think he also had a bit of a worry over his head because the Mustang behind him, Ben Hall, locked the tyres coming in as well. So there we go. In he comes.
Yeah. But he's in now, so he's probably just trying to overcut and run a shorter second stint on his tyre, so he can have a bit more of a go against the guys he's racing in the second stint.
All right, so that should cleanse the field and set everybody back through, and the race lead will then go back to Kurt Stenberg. But Luke Rosella is pretty much right on his doorstep every step of the way right now. They'll be looking down inside here. Rosella almost with two wheels in the grass on the run down the front straightaway, knocks over one of the traffic cones which delineates the short circuit, and Rosella, is he going to get it stopped? Yes, gets it done down the inside. Nice block pass manoeuvre, exactly, got the job done, and that's critical because that means as well that Stenberg now has to go really into that tyre conservation mode and try and find something to fight with toward the back end of this race. Remember, his tyres are 1 lap older than Luke Rosella's, and on top of that, he's also had that little issue with the tyre failure hanging over his head from race number 1.
Yeah, Stenberg's going to play a tricky game here because he needs to probably look at tyre conservation, but he also needs to look at a way to encourage Luke Rosella to use up his tyres, which has been hard to do when Kurt is not the one in front. He's very much in a position he doesn't want to be at this stage of the race. He wants to be in front of Luke Rosella. And the more he spends trying to get that position back, the more tyre wear he's going to bite into. He doesn't have the tyre life. He pitted 1 lap for the half distance, so he's going to make these tyres last 23 laps, which he got pretty close to last race. He didn't quite get there as we saw in the last lap. So it's all in Luke Rosella's hand at this point.
Well, Will Devenish has proven that he can get 23 laps and a little bit more out of the soft tyre as well, because he did the formation lap, plus he did 23 laps, including the in lap. before you change the tyres.
So at Will's pace can. The question is whether at Kurt's pace and with Kurt's driving style, whether he can. That's what we'll see. But at the moment, based on the evidence we've got, it is in Luke's hand at the moment as to whether he's going to win the race or not.
That's right. Couple of liveries on screen. The Kiwis have had their liveries painted this week by Nathan Higginson. Oh, geez, with a big lock up, and he's gone straight on a turn one. So it's been another one of those commentators' curse moments where we were about to have a chinwag about the livery that's on the car, and inevitably they cock up. So he's gone off at turn one. But, Kiwis have been very, very happy with the job that Nathan Higginson has done with their liveries. Cheese has gone with the livery that was on the car that won Bathurst in 1991 in the hands of Mark Scaife and Jim Richards, one of the many wins that those gentlemen have had over the course of time. That was actually back in the days where you had a two-car team. You could actually swap drivers between cars mid-race. It was actually permitted in the regulations. There was the sister car, car number 2, Mark Scaife actually had jumped in a bit later on in the day when the car had actually suffered some mechanical gremlins and tried to get it back up the running order, got it back up as high as I think 9th place at one stage before it eventually retired. And then Steve Burko had just passed him in that little dice for that little mistake that Cheese had made down at turn 1 a couple of laps ago. And then the other car that we were just alluding to in that little battle pack was the Pete Thrower car, which you can probably tell just by the blue and how the livery is written that what has been substituted on the side of that car is the word Calsonic, Brody.
Yeah, so it's based on the Calsonic livery. And Calsonic, a big sponsor of Nissan sort of through the 80s and 90s. And I believe that's based off of the Japanese GT Championship. It would have been I think it was a Skyline at the time.
Yeah, correct. It was a Skyline R31 GTSR.
It was R31, yes.
Was at that point in time, and that was in the late 80s, early 90s, before they upgraded to R32 specification, and then pretty much one half of the 30-odd races that were run in that livery with the R32 between 1990 and 1993 before the Group A regulations eventually got pulled. So you're right, and even to this day, Calsonic's still a very, very big sponsor of Nissan globally in the motorsport realm.
Yeah, so Calsonic, sound systems and audio equipment, and I imagine at some point probably would have been on the OEM list for Nissan audio suppliers. A lot of the big audio brands do end up with OEM connections to car brands to supply sound systems. I know Bose has done some stuff with car manufacturers, Bang & Olufsen as well. So Calsonic probably would have been on the list there, but obviously big in Japan as well with the sort of the tuner culture and customising your cars and putting in some big doof sound systems. And Calsonic would have been the place to go, and probably still is the place to go for some decent equipment.
Yeah, it definitely is. There's plenty of good Calsonic systems there. A little bit further up the field, now that all pit stops have started to settle down and they've all been completed, we now really get to give a good hard look at all the battle groups that are forming. So aside from the group that's out in front with Luke Rosella and Kurt Stenberg going toe-to-toe, in a couple of seconds back to Devonish and Lewis Wedding, Tim Redmond, Pete Savage has got his hands full here with Scott Nolan again. As Brian Walsh exits stage right, that's a bit timely for him to exit stage right ahead of the battle pack here, but I mean Walsh is doing a pretty good job in the retro NASCAR looking livery for Team 18, so he's not done too badly. Yeah,
so if you don't talk about the livery just quickly, I did have a look. That is actually, that was the livery that Team 18 ran as a retro car in, I believe it was 2018 or 2019. That is based off of the colours at least, and I imagine the major sponsorship off of the 2004 NASCAR livery that Kurt Busch ran. So that is actually very NASCAR, it is very NASCAR. I don't think it's necessarily quite period correct to the livery, but the NASCAR sort of livery conventions don't always cross to a supercar, but you can tell pretty clearly it's a NASCAR just by the giant numbers on the door, which is a very NASCAR thing.
Yeah, absolutely, and the slanted numbers as well is very NASCAR to begin with. The next battle pack, as we were looking at before, we were looking at the Pete Savage and Scott Nolan battle, which is just ahead of this battle, with Hans Brunswick trying to mow down Colin Warwick, who's on the recovery trail after the contact with Steve Burko at this part of the course earlier in the race. And Brunswick's not doing too bad a job here. He's staying with Colin Warwick. Let's get a read on the lap times as they get across the line. So Brunswick's will flash up on your bottom corner there, the 57.417 to Colin Warwick's 56.722. So he lost a little bit of room Lost a bit of track there, but it doesn't really look like he did. But at the end of the day, the timing screen doesn't lie. And it's now starting to become quite a nice little battle. I think these guys are probably pretty well matched, Warwick and Brunswick.
Yeah, actually, one battle I want to come to about, I don't want to cut away from this, but we've got a battle for second now. Kurt Stenberg has had a really bad, I'm guessing, last lap there. He's now right up with Will Devenish, and Will Devenish was trying to put a run in him there out of the last corner. So all going wrong for Kurt at the moment, and Will's trying to best optimise the situation.
There's a little bit of bump and grind as well on the front straight at 260 kilometres an hour as well into turn one. Oh, and some pretty major contact as well as Stenberg tried to turn in for the corner. Bit of side-to-side contact as well. I'm not sure how that's going to go down in race control after this one. That's almost tempted to be almost like bump and run, but that's a bit of a weird one.
Even if that's speed in the stewards room, there is no love lost between the two of them. That was not as hard as it needed to be. That was a bit rough. And they're now coming up to lap traffic of Brendan Ross. He's not had a good run this race around on a bonnet, so he's clipped the wall somewhere in all of this. And yes, still a bit more between bars than we'd like to see out of your two vet supercars drivers, and definitely gloves off with these two as they're coming up to some lap traffic.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened to Rossi. I noticed the bonnet was missing very, very early in the race, and I haven't been able to figure out where he ran off the circuit or what happened to him here. Here we go. I can see what Stenberg's trying to do here. He's trying to box him in against Brendan Ross, who's having, realised what was going on a little bit too late, didn't sort of really bail out of it. And now long way around the outside. Is he going to do the same thing that Stenberg did to him? No, just leans on him a little bit here. But there's going to be tooth and nail to the flag, and this is now all benefiting Luke Rosella. These guys have given Rosella a massive free kick here. Again, rubbing on corner exit, and I guess it's now as you were, gentlemen, because that's what it was sort of a lap ago, and Devenish is very slightly ahead. So eventually it's been settled. I'd hate to think the stewards would have to settle some of those little arguments between the two of them, but you never know. It's still going on here as well, but you never know what happens in the stewards room.
Yeah, I think it was possibly erring on the side of fair for Will's pass on Kurt, but there was a bit of contact that did end up with Kurt running wide, so Kurt probably feels as if he was bumped and run there. And no, I think Kurt's sort of given away the possibility of winning this race, and he wants to have, I'm guessing he wants to have a race of this race. He doesn't just want to twiddle around in second and get his second that way. He wants to, I suppose, weirdly earn it over third. I don't know what's currently going on in Stenberg's head. I don't think a lot of people do, to be fair. But no, I think he's very much keen about the idea of having a good race, and Will's, he's pretty happy with his tyre strategy. He can afford to push a little harder, so it's just sort of a duel of the fates almost. We're seeing just very different strategies that are converging on track, and between two drivers who I don't think they're on each other's Christmas cards list.
No, let's just put it that way. I think you probably pretty much sewed it up perfectly. I think with Rosella, with Stenberg and Devenish, they're definitely not on each other's Christmas cards list. When it's Nolan and Will Devenish, they don't want to be in a phone box with each other. That's pretty much the way that it works. But no, they're going to fight tooth and nail. And you're right, Will's got the ability to push a little bit harder in these closing laps because he's got the extra 1 or 2 laps under his belt of tyre life still left. So he can afford to see if he can force a mistake for Stenberg here. But I mean, they don't want to be sort of sliding their tyres around too much either as they continue to press on. Now, that's actually fair. They've given themselves a bit of room through the turn 2-3 chicane there. So I guess they're maybe just slowly starting to settle down a little bit. We look a little bit further field. Lewis Wedding's found his way into 4th place, so he's sort of all on his own. And most of the battles have started to settle down. Scott Nolan's probably the big loser out of all of this because he was ahead of Colin Warwick, Hans Brunswick, and he was even ahead of Pete Savage, and he's now dropped 3 spots. So he's back to 9th, still inside the 10, which is good. And then behind him, Scott Stancliffe is occupying the last spot in the 10 at the moment in the Lightning McQueen car.
Yeah, and Nolan actually just went a little bit too hard there. I mean, he's recovered well. He said he recovered well. He did qualify a lot better. Oh, Hans, big lose there through the second last corner, big slide. So that won't help his tyre temp nor his tyre life. So he's just given that spot back to Scott Nolan. So now Hans sitting in 9th. But yeah, I don't think Nolan's race quite panned out the way he wanted to. He qualified really well, but in the first race, and maybe it's just changing fortunes where he qualified well, but the car maybe on the same side isn't responding as well in a race.
No, I tend to agree with that one. They're now starting to really hone in on the back here of Scott Nolan, who made a position through Hans's misfortune. He's actually gone up a spot. And actually just looking, there was a yellow flag out at turn 1. I couldn't quite see who it was that was off the circuit as the leaders were going past. But we've only got one retiree from this race. It might have been Ben Hall off the road. He's only done 33 laps, and he was already 3 laps down. So I suspect he might have been off there as we watched Scott Stancliffe doing a bit of lawn mowing and going off to play in the sand. So that means that his compatriot in NZ Snipes, you guessed it, he's moved into the top 10 yet again. He just keeps chalking them up, this young fella. He's always hanging around looking for the opportunity to get into the top 10, and there he is again.
Yeah, Nolan, I don't know. Sorry, not Nolan Stank, I don't know what happened there. It's almost, I didn't see any smoke, but I almost said she's blown engine. He just pulled to a stop in the gravel trap and just given up. So I don't know whether he did mention he wouldn't be able to make the second race. Maybe he has hit that point of the second race that he was unable to make. So he's just run as far as he can to probably get some points for finishing somewhere within the hierarchy of order. Yeah, I'm guessing that'll be what that is.
Yeah, correct. It's showing up as an engine for us. It's also showing up as an engine for Ben Hall. So 2 engine failures for the 2 retirees for this one. A couple of drivers that have decided they need to have a late pit stop. I don't know what this is all about. Nathan Higginson's decided he needs to have a late pit stop. As there's a bit of weaving going on behind there with Kurt Stenberg trying to do his best to distract Will Devenish going down the front straightaway. There's a yellow flag down there at turn 1 again. Have we got a safety car? We've got a safety car. Late race safety car.
All right. I don't know I know Tomo was around at turn 1, the exit turn 1. I don't think that would have caused it, but I'm struggling to see where else. I know that Lachlan Burke was in the fence of the final corner, but he was off the racing line. He was on the inside. He might have maybe come back out on track and caught someone. I don't know. But I don't know what's caused that. But yeah, late race safety car it's going to put us in what is it going to be, like a 2-lap sprint to the finish? Pretty
much. It's going to be a 2-lap sprint to the finish. We have actually got a replay of Turmo going around at turn 1. I think you're right. I don't think this was the incident in question that brought out the safety car, because it looked pretty harmless. It might have been the Lockie Burke one you're referring to, but Turmo a little bit eager on the power, has gassed it around, and it was caught in the middle of the road and then got off the road pretty quickly. So it could be 6 to 1, half dozen to the other, but I got a funny feeling it was probably the Lockie Burke incident that was the cause of that one. We haven't got that one on the replay.
This is interesting. We've got pitters, and one of them is Kurt Stenberg.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. If I'm being honest with you here, Rhodey, I'm not surprised that Stenberg has elected to come down pit road. He does not want a repeat of what happened. There's a lot of activity in the pit lane as well. So let's have a look and see if we can see who's actually in the lane at the moment. So got some eyes on this one as we tend to see who's coming out. So there is your pit lane. So Lai Mitch out, Lockie Burke, who you said was involved in that incident, out, Peter Thrower, you've got Ujit Mishra, Brian Walsh is in the lane, so too Freakish, and Kurt Stenberg's the biggest name of the lot. Now, whether or not Stenberg can get out before the safety car comes around, he will, there you go, and Brendan Ross is coming in as well. So the decks are pretty much cleared here. There goes everybody. Will Freakish get out before the safety car? Just in time to stay on that, was he on the lead lap? Yes, he was.
I believe, yes.
Yeah,
he will stay on that. This is interesting then, because, yeah, it is good for Kurt because it means he's no longer at higher critical, but can he get back up to where he might have otherwise been had he had to, well, it's hard, I don't know actually, because if he had to conserve tyres in a condensed field, like I know with the way he and Will were racing, I was going to mention it before we came safety car, that Lewis Wedding was, good chance for another podium the way those two were racing, so he was clawing in on them. That said, I don't think he wanted to be around them the way they were racing, but he would have liked to sit through at the end there. So for Kurt, it's a better run because he can guarantee a finish. He can guarantee a decent finish. Whether it will be as good as it could have been, we'll never know. So that's part of the art of rolling the dice. But yeah, probably 2 or 3 laps at the end here to decide this race. And Luke Rosell is going to hold off now from Will Devenish, who pitted the latest of the lead lap cars. So he's now got the best tyre life out there. And Lewis Wedding.
The same thing as here, Rhodey. It's the second verse, same as the first. The top 3 in the positions they are at the moment was the top 3 from race 1. So it's how funny things change when a safety car comes out. The top 3 have found themselves back to the head of the field. The only man who's caught in this sort of sandwich that's out of place at the moment is Cam Rutledge, being the first car 1 lap down. He's in there between Rosella and Devonish, and then Lewis Wedding is effectively third. He's got Nathan Higgins, he's got Turmo ahead of him.
So in there as well. Turmo and Cam Rutledge actually battling for position as
Yeah,
well. So
correct.
they'll try and get out of the way, but they've got their own little race to have at the back end of this as well.
That's right. And now because they're not caught between the leader and the safety car, they are not obligated to pass the safety car either. It's not like in race 1 where we had to get those guys out of the way. There's a legitimately battle for position. So they'll just pretty much have to pull over to the left-hand side, let the leaders go by, and then resume their own battle when it's safe to do so. And right, we're probably going to get 1, if not 2 laps sprint finish here under safety car condition once it goes out. Kurt Stenberg's come back out in 12th place. He's the last car on the lead lap by live timing as well. So he's behind Cheese and Steve Burko and NZ Snipes. They're the 3 that are immediately ahead of him. But the big question is, how much tyre life have these guys got? Will Devonish, I think, has got the best tyres left out of everybody because he came in later. This safety car benefits him a little bit. It also benefits Luke Rosella to the point where he doesn't have to stress the tyres so much for the closing laps. Now, is the safety car going to come off? Yes, it is. 2 laps to go. So hold on to your hats, folks. There's a control penalty been issued. I think it'll be for Brendan Ross for following too closely or being out of position. He did come in to take service while the safety car was out. And here we go. Leaders are all on the side of the screen to your right now. We're going to get 2 lap sprint finish. Safety car continues to book it down pit lane. And here we go. Rosella hits the gas. And Will Devonish is still tucked in behind Cam Rutledge. And Cam's going to give him a little bit of a tow, but Will's got to pull the trigger really early. Communication is key between the teammates here, and it is. So Will Devonish goes through, Wedding goes through. Tim Redmond's going to do his best to go through as well on the lap traffic of Cam Rutledge, and then Pete Savage behind. So all smooth sailing so far. A little bit of an angry pack a bit further back as Cheese. It just looks like he might have been served a little bit by Lime Mitch there, but mistake green.
Turned as well there by Colin Warwick, and that was unfortunate for him. He's showing out of the way and just in the wrong position at the wrong time. So that's going to lose him spots in his battle with Turmo as well. They're all pretty much through the lap traffic at this point, and it's I think 8 cars that are starting to break away. Harley can see in the back crown there as well. He's I think 9th. But it's all the battle for the lead in the last lap.
Look at this. There's also a lot of rubbing going on between drivers a bit further down the field. These closing laps as well. There's been Burko's been given a big send on Kurt Stenberg there as well. I think that might be retaliatory as well because there was some contact with them through the back part of the circuit, but we'll revisit that in a little bit because for the moment it is Luke Rosella still holding station at the moment out in front on the final lap. Will Devonish has got Lewis Wedding, 4 Company, and Tim Redmond just a stone's throw away. Pete Savage behind them. But it looks like it's all pretty smooth sailing for the moment for the top 5.
Yeah, the only concern at this point would be tyres going, but most of these guys pitted at least a halfway through, if not further. So I expect they'll be good on tyres. And yeah, I think there's no lap traffic isn't going to come into play here. It's just going to be a pure run to the line, and unless Luke royally buggers up the run to the line out of this last corner, he's going to take both wins tonight, and he does indeed.
And it's a big haul of points as well. 300 magnificent championship points for Luke Rosella at the top of the standings, and he is going to have a very healthy margin heading to Sydney Motorsport Park in 3 weeks' time over championship rival Kurt Stenberg. A pair of seconds for Will Devonish, so that's a good return to form for him, capitalising on the mistakes of others, and a pair of thirds for Lewis Wedding. So this is the first time all year that the top 3 for race 1 is also the top 3 for race 2. So it's taken 7 rounds for us to get the same top 3 drivers in that order. There's been a couple that have had the order a bit mixed up, but for the first time, the top 3 as they finish in both races, so good to see. And then Tim Redmond, another good solid run for Kiwi Sim Sports into 4th place. Pete Savage with a good return to form in 5th. Nolan, career, I think, season best finish for him in 6th place, with Cole Warwick in 7th. NZ Snipes is 8th. Hans Brunswick up to 9th, another top 10 for him. And then Steve Burko's 10th, but of course a big question mark over his head with that second last lap incident as well. There'll be a little bit of discussion going on about that one.
Yeah, I was actually, one other thing I noticed as well. First time we've had a exactly mirrored podium finish. I think this is I think we found a thing for Calder between Super 2 and Supercars. This is a track for throwing a wrench in people's championship plans, because we saw in Super 2 Darren Kent pretty well holding on to the lead of that one, and even just in the raw points finish from that race, it was Daniel Cox who ended up taking the lead of that one by a pretty healthy margin, just by virtue of staying out of trouble. And Luke already had the lead, but not by a whole lot, but it's going to get a whole lot bigger.
It certainly is. I'm yet to do the math on how it all works, but I mean, when you take an 8th place finish and a 12th place finish as it stands currently for Kurt Stenberg. So let's go and have a look and read the math. I'll tell you how it all works. So let's look at the Supercars information screen. It tells us all of this info. So an 8th place finish is 90 points. A 12th place finish is 69 points. So I mean, you can do the math there and work it out. So you add 9 and 6 together is 15. So it's 159 points to Stenberg and 300 points to Rosella. So effectively, he's doubled the advantage from tonight. So he's going to walk away with the better part of a near 300 point, or close to about, it's probably be close to about 270, 280 points going into Sydney Motorsport Park. So that will be a huge advantage that he needs to carry out throughout the season, with Stenberg being very, very strong at Sydney Motorsport Park and being very strong at Townsville as well.
Yeah, so I was just getting distracted. We've got, it's the first time we've seen them in a little while. Some very, very smoky burnouts, and that was, a not surprising double race winner tonight. Luke Rosella, obviously, been told he doesn't need those tyres anymore, and just burning the house down. So, no, obviously, we'll have one very happy Luke Rosella, and I think of the podium series we've got in general, some pretty happy figures. Obviously, for Lewis, you mentioned the first race. This does, is just reward for the work he's put in, not only on this track, but the work he's put in across the year, and obviously for the week he's had. And for Will, yeah, good position to be in as well.
Yeah, not a bad result for them as well. And we go to the podium presentations for race number 2 tonight. Race 14 out of 20 for the championship. So it's going very, very quickly this year. Luke Rosella, another round, another race win, times 2, and you've got to be happy with that.
Certainly are, Nether. Thank you. Yeah, we knew we had the pace coming into the second race after the first one, and yeah, it was just going to be interesting with the tyre strategy. I was sort of risking it for a safety car, going with the soft because I sort of knew, it's going to be really tough to get these things to lap 22. But yeah, surprisingly, I was just going to a number again in the first stint. Kurt, he was really just pushing it really hard in that first stage of that stint. But I sort of caught back to him. He was, burning out his tyres, and I sort of cheered when he pitted early because I was aiming to get a lap over Kurt Stenberg, pit lap 23 to sort of push in the second stint. And he must have overfueled because I jumped him. He would have probably jumped me, but it looks like he overfueled. So because I was in front of him the second stint, and it was.
Sorry, go on. Yeah, the second time we actually saw that you jumped him in the pit stops. The first race you did it by virtue of jumping him in pit lane, and the second race you did it with the overcut as well. So the strategy you picked, whatever the strategy call was, actually worked for you. Your start did go according to plan, though. You did have to do it the hard way, coming from behind to make that strategy work, though, with the overcut. Yeah,
the starts were pretty terrible. First start, I sort of knew what I did wrong. I didn't put enough clutch in, and for some reason, I did the same bloody mistake in the second start. So yeah, I had a bit of work to do. The second race was not so important because I just wanted to conserve the tyres. I didn't really want to fight Kurt, so that wasn't too much of a worry. But yeah, as I was saying, the second stint was pretty good fighting with Kurt. Finally got a buffer to him, and I looked behind me, and I think he got involved with a lap car with Nathan Higginson. So yeah, pretty bad luck for him, and it sort of ruined a good race with him, to be honest. But I wasn't really complaining. It was a pretty smooth run to the end for me. But yeah, we got that late race safety car. But I seem to have the pace advantage over Will in those last couple of laps, which was good.
Yeah, he managed to hold him off at the end for the safety car, which was good. And you're right. I think I've been seeing some comments that there's a couple of blue flag situations going on, so maybe that is alluding to the incident with Nathan Higginson you might be referring to there. But we'll see how that goes throughout the week. But good haul of points, and on top of that, a nice little buffer going into SMP in 3 weeks. Well done.
Yeah, it was good to represent the Jacko Signs Cenovas livery and the Pedro Diniz helmet. So yeah, thanks Lewis for painting that helmet. And yeah, it was great fun, great retro round. Thank you.
Good to hear from another multi-time winner in the series. Roadie's got the second place man with Will Devonish yet again.
Yeah, so 2 for 2 in position 2 for you tonight, Will. Yeah, it's you obviously were pretty confident on the tyres there in that first stint because you ran, I think, a lap longer than any other lead lap runners. Were you confident in that, or were you just sort of playing it as it went?
It was a bit of a strategy call. Pete had used a bit more tyre than me, and we realised he wasn't 15 seconds behind me, so it would have ended up being a double stack. My lap times weren't actually too bad. We were about half a second off our best, even on very late in the stint. So yeah, made the decision to go 1 lap more. And yeah, I think that really paid off.
Beautiful. So yeah, obviously you shortened that. Your aim was shorten out the second stint to be able to use a bit more tyre life, and then we saw it. We did catch it about the midpoint of the second stint. You having some very, very hard racing with Kurt Stenberg. Was it sort of, I don't know how to say whether it was planned. Was that sort of the racing you were looking for, or was, like, I don't know, what were your thoughts on that?
It was a bit rougher than I wanted it to be, but it is what it is. We got out of it with a straight chassis, and that's all we can really ask for.
Absolutely. So yeah, a good run for the team's points, and also this not that you've been thinking about so much this year, but this round will be a good little booster in the driver stallions as well. So great work, Will, and hopefully we see you again on the podium in 3 weeks' time.
Thank you.
And finally, back in third again, second podium for tonight is Never with Lewis Wedding.
Lewis, you said you were going to be a bit surprised if you're standing on the podium for a second time tonight, but well, here we are.
Yeah, here we are. I don't really know what to say, to be fair. I mean, I'd fairly decent speed. Qualifying speed wasn't quite there, but I knew going from the back half of the first race, obviously the race pace is pretty good, and got a, again, pretty good start and made up a spot or two, and from there sort of edged my way a little bit closer forward, got ahead of Nolan there, and from then on it was pretty much about managing the gap to Redmond for the rest of the race, up until the at least the pit stops anyway.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, it's amazing how the safety car sort of throws a bit of a curveball in things comparing to race 1, because the safety car came out very, very early in the piece, and it wasn't until Kurt Stenberg's tyre let go that you ended up finding yourself in third place. But the late safety car here and Stenny opting to pit, not wanting a repeat of the same thing, it's just, I guess, unusual and ironic how things sort of work out.
Yeah, you go for the year that I've had in sim racing, where it's not been too good, and then all of a sudden in one night you get pretty much all the luck in the world there. With Kurt would pretty much be finishing at least second or third at worst, just about any other race. But this time, obviously, he did pit very early, and I said to the guys that were in the same Discord channel that he's going to struggle to make it. But even then, with the safety car, I was still surprised to see him pit, but obviously couldn't make it. And then from there, it was all about not fencing it or getting caught up in lap traffic. But they were actually pretty good. The 2 Series cars, I think it was Termo and Rutledge, I think, did a really good job of sort of getting out of at least my way, from the guys behind me as well, from what I saw just after the restart. There's an awkward point, but I'm sort of hoping maybe Will and Luke could sort of come together a little bit and make it interesting. But I was catching actually Kurt and Will with their spirited battle after whatever happened to Kurt, sort of dropped him down his place, and then I threw it off the road. I did what I think a couple of other guys have done into turn 1. I just clipped the grass under braking and sort of went wide at turn 1, couldn't pull it up, and the next lap the safety car came out. So it sort of saved blessings a little bit and gave me a chance to podium, and here I am. I'll take it.
Almost sounds
Get
like
a
as if you're getting
jail-free
a get out jail free card there, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, so they must have been sitting on him a race seat or something like that. But look, fantastic. Once again, big ups to Cogsy for the livery, and Retro Round seems to bring out a bit of a retro performance. So it's a shame Retro Round can't be every round, but no, at least from my point of view, anyway, I'd like to thank everybody that put together liveries for this round. Everybody did a fantastic job. Whole grid up and down from first all the way down to the 26th car on the grid. We're all looking pretty mega. Shame that Foley couldn't get out and show his off, but perhaps, I don't know, maybe some dispensation later on in the year and he can run it and run the other rounds. But big thanks to everybody that put a lot of work in for the liveries, and best of luck for this season. This will be my final round, at least in the main series anyway.
Yeah, and I do agree with your sentiments there about Brenton Foley. It's a shame that he couldn't get out there tonight to do it, but we'll definitely get a chance to get his livery out there at some point in the season on the broadcast, because it deserves a bit of recognition. So well done on your pair of third places tonight, and a good way to sign off on your participation in the main game this year. Well done.
Thank you, and best of luck for the rest of the year.
Alrighty, let's sum up the night. It's been a topsy-turvy night in the championship. There's been a bunch of changes that have happened, not so much through any particular person's fault, but it's a big margin at the top of the point standings now with 3 rounds to go.
Yeah, I'm just watching Scott Nolan updating the points. He's running the score sheets for us this year, but it's already, from what I see, a pretty big gap now at the top. It's just over 200 points now between Luke Rosella and Kurt Stenberg. And the way those guys have been racing across the season, it's going to be very hard. It's going to be a lot of work for Kurt Stenberg going forward to try and rein that in based on the pace they've both been showing. Will Devonish, obviously, very solid haul of points there. He's pulled him clear of his teammate in Pete Savage, and obviously has helped them both in the team standings. Termo, as you mentioned, he was sitting at 9.99. He's made it into the 4 figures up to 11.28. So he's closing in on the back of Pete Savage. And it's a nice little bracket there of the CRE drivers. Maybe Termo, depending on what the CRE is playing for next year, maybe Termo knocking on the door of a promotion to the main car, or to the main team. But Lewis, he has sort of put a pin mark in his championship this year. So at this point, I think he will finish 9th with 936 points, or he will be 9th at this point. He will filter down as the championship goes on, and for that car, the rest of the season, I mentioned, we'll see Damon Woods, and he already had a good showing last round, so he'll probably get up to pretty similar to where Lewis is sitting, maybe not quite as far up with less rounds to go through. And but yeah, no, it's been a championship changer, and I said this after the first race. It seems that Calder does this, so I'm really happy that we ran it both as a retro round and both. What has happened. It's not really a track they run them on calendar, and maybe it's because it's too narrow. But we really sort of separates, I suppose, the men from the boys in our Supercars series, and I would very much like to see it again next year.
Yep, I agree. There's a few people that have sort of, as you said, it's a love it or hate it track. You sort of like Sydney Motorsport Park. There's a few drivers that'll be a bit annoyed if it makes a return next year. There'll be a few drivers that'll be happy to see it because they perform well here. But that's next year. We'll worry about that then. Before we sign off for the night, I think we've got Brendan Ross and Will Devonish in here, so we may as well have a little bit of a quick discussion about some of the upcoming series that are coming up, just so everybody knows what's happening. So for yourself, Rody, and also for Wilbur, if he's still around, the Aussie racing cars, they are starting up on the 3rd of August, so about a week and a half away. This is a good little series. This is going to be based around the same sort of philosophy that we had with the Mini Challenge Cup earlier on in the year, but the track draw is random. Wilbur, if you're there, let's have a yak about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty keen on it. It's a series that I think we've been talking about for 3 years, that we'd always do it, but we never really get around to doing it. So it's great to bite the bullet and get it done, and having a slightly different format with random track draw. So there's no benefit from anyone for practicing or anything like that. It's just rock up, race, the best driver wins, I guess.
Yep, and on top of that as well, I think I like about it is the random track draw. As you said, just keeps that little bit of element guessing. People don't need to go and put tons and tons of practice in. And the last time we actually ran these cars, it was in 2018 with the Brock Harvey Invitational. So it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. They're pretty easy cars to drive. Anyone can hop in. So anyone listening that hasn't joined a race with us before, I'm sure there'll be some wild cards for anyone to hop on, and we'd be welcoming anyone into the series.
Yeah, it's a pretty full series as it is, but you're right, there will be some wildcard ones there. Rossi, over to you for the next one, if you're there. The Super Series, which you've been involved in putting the pack together for, return to a series that started it all back in 2018, and great to see the defending champion from the last Super Series, Brenton Hobson, is back.
Yeah, good to see he's back. Don't know yet whether he's going to carry over from the number one, but good to bring back the Staple Series, which was back in AMS Oz days. So back when Brock Harvey used to run everything, he ran the Lancers for just about every series, but this was his Staple Series, the Super Series. We're bringing back the RS Lancer and the R Lancer for the two-class structures. So we kick it off, I think it's 10th of August at Malala, and then we ended all just towards the end of the year at Long Beach at the 1998 layout. So it's a good variety of circuits, and good to see all the sign-ups. We capped out more than what we thought we were going to get, so we actually had to open more options for the RS class, which is actually good to see. There's an even split between the two.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good looking series too. That's the one thing you've got to remember in this series too, guys. This is a two-class structure, so there'll be two separate grids essentially. There'll be the RS class cars will kick away a little bit quicker. The R cars are a little bit slower, but they will present a sort of a unique multi-class racing, sort of a bit on not a huge disparity compared to when we ran the World Endurance Championship with the LMP2 and the GT3 cars in the same grid. The disparity is not that large, but it's large enough to at least distinguish that there is a class structure going on here. And you can see there's 5 Australian tracks, 2 American tracks, and 1 trip across the ditch to New Zealand. And good to see the guys that have been looking after the broadcasting over at TCAC. So Kiwi, Chris Riddell, and Michael the Floodman Zalavari, they'll be broadcasting that one over on WEC Endurance Chat. So graphics by yours truly, but they will be looking after all elements of the broadcast for that one on the Tuesday night. So good to have them along. And then finally, there's still plenty of room for this one, gentlemen and ladies. The ASR Enduro Cup, owing on the success of last year's Bathurst 500. The 500 is back, but it's bringing along the Sandown 300 and the Gold Coast 400 for the ride. Good to see. There's already a good healthy list of sign-ups there. It will, of course, be broadcast here live on the Outworld Broadcasting channel on those dates listed there. And this year, we are really, really privileged to have the sponsorship of Penrite a better class of oil, and Ryco Filters. They're putting together some really nice merchandise packs for the winners and for a number of other prizes and giveaways throughout that series. So we'll be really looking forward to any of the newcomers that are in the group that for the first time would like to get a taste of Supercars action but haven't had a chance to do so. Come along, have a bit of a try at Super 2, and if you like what you want to drive, then why not come and have a run in the Supercars Enduro Cup, brought to you by Penrite and Ryco Filters. So with that in mind, we'll sign this one off for the night. Thank you very much for watching. The next broadcast you'll see on this channel is going to be GT3 from Imola in a week's time. Until then, please drive safely, everybody. Bye for now.